It is 5:30. Good to know. All right. It is 5:30 and welcome to the September 16, 2021 Southeast Polk Community School Board meeting. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Karen, can I get a roll?
Andy,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Nave.
Here.
Slings. Krell,
Here.
Powell,
Here. Okay, looks like we have a quorum, so move on to 1B, agenda adoption. Dr. Lipnick, are there any changes?
No, there are not.
All right, seeing no changes, do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Okay, Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right, 1C, district vision and mission. Do we have any volunteers that would like to read that?
I'll go for it.
Thank you.
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you. All right, 1D, this is time for public comments. I'm just going to go ahead and read open forum guidelines just so everybody's on the same page. The board recognizes the importance of citizen participation in school district matters. Citizens wishing to address the board must do so during the public forum portion of the agenda. If you haven't, if you do wish to speak, there's a form back in the back. You can just fill that out. Need to complete the public comment card prior to the meeting and give the superintendent or board recorder. We'll take them as we go. We're not gonna, but the public comment cards again are located at the entrance of the building. If an individual wishes to address the Board of Education, time is limited to 3 minutes. If you'd like to speak as a group, you can do 5 minutes if it's the same topic. That is, if you have a group. The board president will recognize these individuals to make these comments at the appropriate time when addressing the Board of Education. State your name or the group name, address, city, and agenda item to be addressed. Only those speakers recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. If disruptive individuals causing disruption, they may be asked to leave the board meeting. So I have a few cards already in an email. First one, is it Kristen Severs? Did I say that right? Severs. Okay, I apologize. Yeah, if you want to come up here to the microphone and you can just state your name. Yeah.
We have a timer.
Yeah, if you want to just get close. It doesn't, we don't have a lot of. Sure. Maybe again, whenever, just need, repeat your name again.
Yes,
and
Kristen
address.
Severs, 4540 Bartholomew Drive in Pleasant Hill. I'm here, I don't think it's any secret, the mask thing is back, so I'm just here first to thank you for your service and your time. I appreciate it. This is my first time coming to this, so thank you for coming time after time. I appreciate that. And you've been tasked with an impossible job. One size fits all rarely works in this world. But you have been reminded over and over that we need to protect the least of these. And I would like to gently remind you that the least of these are also not one size fits all. And the best of intentions can have harmful and unintended consequences. For example, myself and 2 of my children suffer from hearing loss. People with hearing loss live in a low volume world that is difficult to understand. And when that world and everyone in it are wearing masks, it becomes low volume and also muffled. And more importantly, and often overlooked, we lose our visual cues. And when we lose those cues, our comprehension in general goes down. Most people don't realize how important lip reading actually is, and they do it without even realizing it, but people with hearing loss depend on it. And a world of masks is socially isolating to people with hearing loss because you don't want to be the person always saying, what? I'm sorry, what? So you end up withdrawing from the conversation and nodding and pretending to follow along. Not to mention how difficult it can be to understand teachers who are masked as well. This year we have microphones, much better, thank you for that. But last year was really difficult for my kids in the classroom. They had a hard time with their peers and with their teachers. Kids with glasses deal with the distraction of glasses fogging over all the time. Kids with sensory issues deal with the distraction of having something touching their face all day. Kids with speech issues struggle even harder to be understood, and with the loss of visual formation of how words are formed, it's hard for them to learn how to correct those speech issues. And those are just a few that I could think of that I know about. I'm sure there's others. No one is trying to make things more difficult for kids with different journeys, yet a one-size-fits-all decision can have unintended consequences. And I'm just asking you to please leave the decision and the choice to parents who know their kids and who know the path that those kids are walking, so that we aren't harming some of the least of these in the name of trying to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Todd Lust.
My name is Todd Lust, and I've had 4 children of my own graduate from Southeast Polk. They enjoyed the school system. I've got 12 grandchildren, 4 of them attend Southeast Polk, all of them in elementary school. And when you guys shut the school down and we had to do the home learning, Grandma and I got to take care of 2 of them and tried to do that. Not real successful. Especially, I mean, our computer skill stuff aren't like the 6-year-olds. I guess they know more than what we do. But my concern is if you would just allow parents the choice of masking their kids or not. And if a mask works, let the people that want to wear one wear one. We're good with that. We're not going to tell you not to. But for some reason, on the opposite side, those that don't want to wear a mask are forced to. And, you know, I was at a basketball. I've got a grandson he was a freshman last year. So I go to the basketball games. Kids are all playing basketball out on the floor. All the parents have to sit in there in a room in the gymnasium, separated with a mask. And I decided not to wear mine one day. Well, the athletic director comes over and he says, "You need to put a mask on." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you do." I said, "But all the players are out there are shoulder to shoulder. Why do they not have to wear a mask and I do?" He said, "It's because it's the player's choice whether they want to take the risk or not." I still don't understand that. So he says, "You can either put one on or leave." That's not a choice. And it didn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense. And so I'm just asking for those of us that don't want our kids or grandkids to wear a mask, please give us that option. That's all I'm asking. A couple of them have asthma, and you wear a mask all day, it causes problems and it makes them sick. And so we as parents and grandparents are willing to take the chance, and we're willing to take the risk. So if you want to wear a mask, great. But if you don't, it should be our choice. That's all I'm asking. I'm not begging for anything. I'm just saying we need choice here. And, you know, if kids want to wear one, great. But it's just amazing. You watch a football game on Saturday up at Iowa State, playing Iowa, not a freaking mask anywhere. 67,000 people in stadiums having fun, not a mask anywhere. So why are we going to force students to wear a mask? You know, and if you can explain that, that'd be great. But that's all I'm just asking, speaking for the kids and the parents and grandparents, you know, help us out and just at least give us a choice. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Scott Reddish.
Well, guys, thanks for taking the time. I had the opportunity to email all of you, I think, over the week, and I appreciate those of you that did reply to me. It meant a lot. My family and I just recently moved to Altoona in November of last year. We had lived in Des Moines. My wife and I have 3 kids, a 3-year-old little girl and an 8 and 9-year-old little boys. We moved from Des Moines because we had fixed up our property and we wanted to sell it, to, you know, just do that, to flip it, make money, but also because of the way the Des Moines public school system handled the pandemic last year. We felt stuck as parents and wanted a different opportunity for our kids personally. We were able to move over to Willowbrook Elementary, close to the school, and we've really enjoyed it so far. Our boys, though, last year with the online learning and that, I feel really are just getting back to kind of a normal school year this year. And the thought of them having to put their mask on is hard for me as a dad, but I see it in them too, having a hard time with it. They tell me it's uncomfortable, that it's awkward, that they don't want to wear it for 8 hours a day. And it's something that for me is hard to say, go ahead and put it on, guys, because I personally don't really see the benefit of it. I know a lot of people would agree differently, but that's my point of view personally. So I just wanted to come and introduce myself, let you see my face. I know I talked to you through email, and ask you to let the parents make a choice for their kids, try to hopefully stand up for the kids and not make them put a mask back on. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Go into reading emails after this. Is there anybody else that may think they want to speak before I go into the email? Okay. Thank you. All right, so we got one email. I think the board got the same email from another person in this member's family. Ross, I'm terrible with names, so it's Reuters. Okay.
He's a neighbor.
It's from 2010 Copperwind Court in Pleasant Hill. And he just says, my spouse and I are parents of Southeast Polk High School student. We would like the school board to protect student, teachers, and parent health in our community by requiring and enforcing a mask requirement at Southeast Polk. We expect the same leadership we have seen from many of the other Des Moines Metro school districts on this issue. Thank you for sharing this information with the school board and Superintendent Haletnik. I appreciate your time. Best of luck with the board meeting tonight. I hope it goes smoothly for the school board and staff. Any other takers before we move on? All right. All right, so that includes our public comments. We'll move on to 1E consent agenda. For the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for administration?
Have we gotten any closer to thinking about capping open enrollment? Because it looks like this one was pretty even, but I know we've been kind of borderline, especially at the high school.
We have denied several at the high school since our last meeting. The ones that are approved in there were continuing eds where we have to accept them.
Yep.
Is the number of teaching associates on this agenda normal at this time of year?
I think it's probably up a little bit, but
Seemed
our
like it.
overall numbers are also up a little bit.
Yeah, it seemed like, about 15 new ones and about another 8 or so existing transfers or something. That's pretty normal,
It's a little higher than normal.
a little higher.
It's the burden of growth. You're the best around. People come to you.
Any other questions for administration? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Okay, moving on to old new business. 2A confirmation of next board meetings, which is October 7th and October 21st, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
I have a selfish question, Dr. Halepnik. When is the reorganization meeting, then that next?
It is
Meeting?
It's the second meeting.
It's the
in
second meeting in
November.
November. All right.
Because we are we're
Not that I'm trying to get out any
yeah.
sooner than I need to.
He sees the finish line. He's already, he's
The
planning.
canvassing of the vote is 2 weeks delayed when a district involves more than one county. And since we have 3,
Oh,
that's why we have to bump it to the second.
all right.
November
I think
meeting.
you did tell me that at some point. All right.
Warren and Jasper take their time.
All right, any other questions?
It's good. So moved.
Okay. Did we have a second on that one?
I made the
We had
motion.
it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Okay.
I'll second Rick.
Okay, I thought we did.
Third, fourth.
All right, Karen,
Nave,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Okay, item 2B, Autumndale public hearing. The district had been in discussion with the owners of Toad Valley Golf Course regarding proposal for a exchange of land for 1.1 acre for residential development around their golf course. The actual exchange is for 6.955 acres. 1 to 1 acre, I'm sorry. Yeah, so it's an even split. Any question, or do I get a motion?
It's a public hearing.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. All right, it's 5:46 PM. Now I'll go ahead and open the public hearing to receive comments. Board Secretary, have you received any written comments?
I have not.
How about any orally?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone present wishing to provide comment on this?
Okay to see where it's from to,
Pardon me?
which pieces of land.
Yeah, who's got control of the, is that you, Jason? I think one of those shows the, yeah, the survey. It's in black and white, so.
Kevin, would you mind explaining that just a little bit, or?
I can, yes. There are several different types of survey there. Some of those ones that have the cross-sectional lines that we are obtaining. And the other plots are the ones that we are giving to, or exchanging with Toad Valley. It's hard to see with that drawing there. But again, the exchange is 1 acres, but it's only just under 7 acres.
And basically what it does, it straightens out the,
Yeah.
if you can see the straight line versus the jagged.
I was gonna describe it as trading corners.
Pretty close.
Yeah,
Pretty close.
exactly. Yep.
It also means we get to get rid of the reservoirs, right? If I remember that correctly, that we will no longer have those.
It gives us a more straight line for mowing purposes, and it does the same for Toad Valley. Also gives us a little more root property on the south side of the new stadium.
That's on the other side of the street, isn't it?
The current stadium.
Right,
Current,
right.
yeah, thank you. Current
I was
stadium.
like, I'm reading that graph wholly wrong if that's the new stadium, so.
Guess I haven't flipped to the new stadium yet.
All right. See nobody, no other comments. And I think just for the record, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and where you're from, just since we did.
Yeah.
Have
Cody Coons, just south of Pittsville.
Okay.
Where I'm at right now.
All right, we'll just, yeah, just for record, since we had that back and forth. So anybody else wish to address the board on this issue? All right, hearing none. Okay. 5:48, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. To see Autumndale agreement. Do I have a motion for that? Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, this is Tom. Hey, just wanted to make sure we got it ironed out that we're not paying any legal fees on this.
No, they were, it was in there that they were gonna pay it.
Mr. Nate, this is Kevin Bacom. There are no fees for the district to be paid except for any kind of property taxes on our property.
Excellent. Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you.
He called Bradley.
He called him
Yes.
Bradley. Okay.
All right, so we're good to go?
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, Karen?
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
All right, 2D Mid-American Easement Public Hearing. Go ahead and Open the public hearing for this one. It is 5:50. Go ahead and open the public hearing to receive comments. Board Secretary, received any written comments?
No.
Any oral?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to present anything on this one? Don't want to talk to us tonight? All right, we'll give it just a few seconds in case you change your mind. I don't. Pardon me.
It says this easement affects the construction phase of the multipurpose stadium. How does it affect it?
Affects the vital knowledge of the site right now. This is a great impact.
And again, just for the record, if you want to just state your name again. Thank you. All right, seeing nobody else rushing to the podium, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 5:51. All right, 2E Mid-American Easement Agreement. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the easement agreement.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion, comments? Okay, Karen?
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
2F Modified Allowable Growth for Special Education.
Good evening, board. This is done with every year. Once we file the state compliance report, the certified annual report, we didn't have numbers for a special education deficit. As you see, special education deficit over the past 3 years has been going back to 2018, 2.8 million, 3.3 million, and 3.9 million. For this past year, the year just ended 2020-21, the deficit went down a little bit to 2.5 million. We had additional Medicaid receipts from the 2020 school year that came in 2021. We also had additional larger gaps between tuition in versus tuition out of special education students. So although the deficit did go down this year by roughly $1.4 million, I anticipate that will go back up again for this school year, the 21-22 school year.
So that was a one-time move?
Part of it had to do with the Medicaid piece, correct?
Oh, okay.
And just to remind you, this is budget authority for the 22-23 school year. We don't collect any money on this now, but this will be part of, as long as we have room within our tax levies and what the board decides, those will be collected with property taxes in the 22-23 budget year.
I mean, this thing has been sort of a, an issue because of the size of it. And obviously it's came down this year for some one-time events, I guess, but I think it's something the board has to be vigilant of. And I mean, you must feel like we've got it. We can absorb it.
It is, and sometimes people feel like it's money that's not lost, but at the same time, if we didn't have these deficits, there's our tax levies that we wouldn't have to issue levies against or collect against. So having a special education deficit of this size for our school district is not abnormal.
Okay.
There are larger school districts just to the west of us that have nearly a $10 million deficit. So this is not abnormal for a school district like Southeast Polk.
The one west of us is quite a bit bigger than we are though, right?
They are, and
That's-
they're growing quite exponentially. Yes.
Okay.
All right, can I get a motion on this or any other questions for Kevin real quick?
Kevin, is this one that has to be specifically worded for a motion or is it just generic?
No, it's just generic. The dollar amount, please.
With the dollar amount?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's my turn. Okay.
Well, you don't have to.
While you're looking at me, so. I move that we approve the request for the increased modified allowable growth for submission to the school budget review committee in the amount of $2,510,526 for the special education deficit for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Karen?
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Okay, 2G, modified allowable growth for LEP.
Similarly, with our limited English proficiency program, which it looks like I misspelled, sorry about that. We get certain amount of funding for that program. Any kind of excess spending on top of that, excess of our funding, we can gain back through modified allowable growth as submitted to the SPRC. For the past 3 years, 2018, 2019, 2020, those amounts were $346,000, $338,000, and $395,000 respectively. This year it went up to $432,000 and $432,313 for those instruction costs for the limited English proficiency program in excess of funding.
What was the reason for the increase? More students or?
Staff member addition.
So you're seeking the 485?
432.
432.
Yeah, this has been updated.
Okay,
since-
gotcha.
Again, just like the special education deficit, this is money that is retrieved through property taxes in the following school budget, school year 2022, 2023.
It's the same process we go through every year.
Every year.
Any other questions for Kevin? Do we have a motion?
I'll move it, but I don't have the correct amount. Let's see.
All of you, man.
All right.
There you go.
I move the administration recommendation that we approve a request for increased modified allowable growth for submission to the school budget review committee in the amount of $432,313 for LEP instruction costs for funding in the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right, 2H, temporary staffing adjustment for building and grounds.
This item is here to have the board approve on a temporary basis to move some of our custodial staff from part-time to full-time. We did this similarly last year and it results to the pandemic. We feel that it's important for us to continue to increase our cleaning sanitation needs within those buildings, at least through the beginning of spring break this year with the increase in what's going on with the environment.
So this goes through spring break,
Up to spring
up to
break.
spring break.
Correct.
Did we go past spring break last year with that?
We went to spring break, I believe, last year. Same thing.
Change of seasons.
Is this moving some part-timers to full-time?
That is exactly what this is doing,
Yeah.
correct?
I think it's needed.
Kevin, we can't tie any of this money to the federal money that we got for.
Actually, it will be, yes.
Well, okay, that's what I wondered, because it's just a general fund, but
Yeah, the CARES money sits in the general fund, but more
Oh,
But,
specifically,
all
yes.
right, so that helps.
This is all ESSER 3 or
Correct.
ESSER 2.
Correct.
okay.
Do you have the willing manpower to make the adjustment, or do you have to hire? Or?
Personnel wise, you're
Right.
talking about dollars.
Yeah, personnel wise,
Gary's back there. Margie.
you need,
Probably need to add a few people. like we did last time.
okay.
Hey, if they're local, all the better. People from the community.
All right, anything else for Kevin? All right. And I forgot to mark if we need a motion still, right?
I think we do, yeah.
Motion to approve temporary staffing adjustment, building and grounds.
Second,
Thank you. Okay, Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
yes.
2I, this is to set public hearing for Des Moines Waterworks easement. That'll be for October 7th, 2021.
Just like the Mid-American easement that runs, we'll be running along Martha Miller Drive. This is an easement to the waterworks to provide water lines down that particular driveway, specifically to the multi-purpose stadium. This one isn't as critical as the Mid-America Waterworks one, but Mid-America one, but it is something that will need to be done sooner rather than later.
Basically, if we want bathrooms, we have to approve this. Okay,
Yes.
seems simple enough. I don't know.
Probably won't be watering the turf.
It's artificial, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, nostalgia. Grass stains are great.
All right, anything else for Kevin, or can you get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Karen?
Dave,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
All right, 2J, this is the Permar security agreement. We've seen this already, but this is to extend it for a 2-year agreement. Is that correct?
Correct. We do have a contract of service right now with Permar to do some security work at our high school, mainly for entrances and also the parking lot monitoring. This is to set a 2-year agreement with Permar. It also sets forth the wage rate that we pay them as a third-party vendor. Services will remain the same. There's one Permar employee right now working at the high school, and then we hope to retain that employee. The wage rate itself is in line with industry average to about 50 to 75% of what that industry average cost is.
How have they been for us?
According to Mr. Pettit at the high school, this particular gentleman has been remarkable for the district.
Was it a 1-year agreement before? Or-
It was a year to year.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
this is a multi-year, so I need to bring it to you.
2, okay.
Do we get cost savings or something by doing this in a multi-year
We
agreement?
did not. We just wanted to set the wage rate for the next 2 years.
Okay.
But take that back. The vendor wanted to set the wage rate for the next 2 years.
And I say this all the time, but obviously this saves us. We have a good officer there now, it sounds like, but obviously you can get yourself into some issues if you get a bad person that, just like any other employment, but really the only thing in my mind this saves us is benefits. Where I still think in these positions, it's nice to have somebody that's in the community that gets to know the kids a little bit better, because when you have a group like this, they can come and go, they can move them wherever. We've been pretty fortunate, and that's why I'm not going to oppose this, but I just got to keep bringing it up. Yeah, I think we should go to probably our own, what we had before we hired Permar, and we had our own, what we call them hall monitors. Is that what they were?
Campus monitors.
Campus monitors. So
When was that change made? Because I feel like that was
2012, you were,
Shortly after I got.
was it
here.
after? I
Yeah,
couldn't remember. It's somewhere around,
2013.
and it was just
Okay.
a cost saving measure because of the,
it was budget cuts.
Yeah.
Part of the reductions, yeah. And this has been brought up probably a couple years after that fact. We did analysis on it, and President Handy's correct with his analysis that it was a benefit savings.
Mhm.
District benefits cost savings.
But as long as, yeah, as long as we have a good person in there that does what we need them to do, then a little iffy on the 2-year contract, but that's okay. Any other questions for?
Yeah, I'd like to see us try to get a female in this role as well, just with the absence of any like female administrators and stuff in the high school. I think it'd be beneficial if we had a female that could assist with our female population there too.
Because don't we have 2.5? Isn't that what the
Should have positions available for them to use, correct? We only have one person there now, though.
where's our other 1.5?
We haven't had the need to fill that, I guess, at that particular site.
Okay, so if we only want one, then
Correct.
we're just paying for the one.
Correct.
Okay.
What is the They just look at the outside of the schools, or they in schools, what are they, their role?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
they,
oh.
they
Oh, okay.
monitor students as they come in the hallways, and they also monitor the parking lots for effective parking of students. et cetera.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and just for the record, normally we don't have conversations during the actual, what,
Speak out.
Business.
yeah, when we're actually in the thing, but that's fine, no problem. So it's a good question. It's a good question.
Throw your name out there for the record.
Casey Ruddy. I don't know.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. Any other questions?
I just looking to the future, and I know we get the new Raptor system and the the safety group that we met with last week. If we ever have a school that feels like they need a person with more experience or more, I don't know what you would call, positive, feel comfortable doing the position, if we need to hire somebody, could it be one of these type of people to be answering that A-horn, if we understand what I'm asking, President Handy?
Well, this, it's either the secretaries or
I
somebody
know,
that's at the
but if
front
a
that-
school secretary doesn't feel comfortable in that role.
Yeah, this position,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to speak it, but basically their job
Yeah.
is to kind of monitor, to be
Yeah.
out there moving around and not stuck in one spot.
Right,
Maybe checking doors, dealing with parking issues.
and since we have the 1.5 possibility of adding at some point, that could come up in the future, we could send them to a school that may have an issue for some reason with unwanted visitors.
Well, yeah, we don't want to
Yeah.
misconstrue this as our SROs. And
No,
We
no,
have one of them in the back.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and, can you tell, I mean, where's the fine line there, I guess? Between Permar and, I mean,
Our space can stay outside the parking lot. Since we've got the controller, getting kids from junior high over to our high school. Our school monitors, they kind of coincide with me, where I can monitor most of our Ricotta security system. The actors, they are escorting kids to ISS, escorting visitors throughout the building. But Raptor can be opening up. That way we'll have more control of who our visitors are.
Mhm.
And that way I can monitor as well as the people in front. Because say when we play different that, because they're gonna be ID, if they are flagged for human trespass in one of those school districts, I will be notified. I can escort one of them. So Raptor system will be very beneficial when that's up and running.
yes,
But our auto monitors they're very beneficial, when it comes to assisting you. Stuff.
Mhm.
Getting a lot of that overall control.
yes,
It's never in fight sometimes. But they're great to work with. So
Yeah.
They're very beneficial.
I think they're a great addition. I agree with Tom Nave that if we have the opportunity to hire female, it'd be nice to hire female in a building that all of our administrators are male. It'd be nice to have a female presence.
Completely beneficial to have two of each.
Yeah,
I mean, we have Dawn with us now, and she is overworried. I feel for her, but she's doing a great job. But yeah, it's second.
yes.
So does this contract limit them to just the high school, or do they also work in, say, the junior high? Because I know we have some of our high schoolers park in the junior high lot as well. So do they go through both lots?
I think they're monitoring both lots, but I can certainly confirm that, Mr. Crowe.
Looking to the future, when that 6th, 7th grade building is no longer on site, obviously we won't have parking issues with students at that point in time, but it would still be nice to have, the entrances monitored or something like that. Could we look to that expansion possibly in the future?
I think that's part of the discussion with the whole building in general, the 6th, 7th building, staffing in general.
Wonderful.
all right, any other questions for Mr. Pecom or the motion?
I'll make the motion that we set a public hearing date of October 7th, 2021 to discuss a proposed. Oh, I think I'm reading the wrong one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait a second.
Yeah, this is. the-
Yeah, I guess somebody else should take over.
We'll just go with move to approve.
Move to approve. That works. Thank you.
I'll second his motion to approve. That's what we'll do.
Thank you, Adam.
Care Harbor.
A 2-year agreement with Parmar Services at the high school. Is that the right recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, then we got Mr. Crow for the second. All right, Karen?
Crow,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
All right, looks like that concludes old and new business. We'll move on to topics for discussion. 3A is superintendent's report.
Good evening. Sharing some good news things here. I'll be relatively brief. Just want to reiterate the Top Workplace Award for 2021. The district was an award winner for 7 years in a row, which is a nice thing, but what makes it especially nice is it's based off the surveys of our employees, which are private, anonymous surveys. So something that we're very proud of and want to make sure that we don't let slip by. So building visits, we have been to Mitchellville and Clay Elementary so far this year. 2 really nice mornings. Those are always some of my favorite days of the year when we get to hear all the great things that are happening in those buildings. Next up is Runnels, which is a week from Thursday on the 30th. I was down there today and things were humming. So they're off and running and having a really good start. So that'll be a fun one. Next week is homecoming week. As you know, a week from tonight, 23rd, is the parade. Gary's waxing the truck, getting everything ready for that.
You get the dump truck this year or just a regular truck?
Well, and was I reading something earlier that we're not supposed to be throwing candy out of the vehicle anymore? They've asked us not
Walk
to do
along
that.
the
Always
side.
recommended not to throw if somebody wants to walk, you can throw candy out. They just want to make sure the candy gets to the curb so the kids aren't going into the moving traffic.
Just need better arms, that's all.
So kind of related to that, then on Friday, the Hall of Honor inductions, if you haven't seen that, I think I pushed it your way last week, but Donna and Ruth Johnson, Sue Green, Paul Stout, Donna Frericks, and Tim Burgett are this year's class of inductees. That's always, again, a really fun night to see how proud those families are. And then obviously the game on Friday night. So I won't bore you with the meetings. It's kind of the usual list of the beginning of the year type meetings there. I will say this, though, we're now into the season of state reporting, where we are gathering all kinds of data on everything you can about imagine and turning that into the state. We hit yesterday was a big due date for several different reports, and a lot of people in here worked really hard to get that done. And all of that kind of leads up to the culmination of October 1st, which is certified enrollment, which, as you know, that is the magic number that drives funding for the district for next school year. So with that, I'd take any questions.
It would be an error on my part if I didn't recognize that 7 years of the same honor of the school district getting that, the best.
Top workplace.
Top workplace, and Dirk's been here 7 years.
Coincidence.
Coincidence?
Great people.
You do have good people doing it, but it is a reflection of the team that you have, and I'll just say, congratulations to everybody that's sitting in this room and the staff and
I think so.
and of course the kids. Obviously they have to enjoy the kids to kids are doing something right to make the teachers and staff happy. So
There's no doubt this is a special place, and it's the people that make it that way.
yeah, so thank you to you and your team and everybody that has a part of Sally Spoke.
Well, and I wanted to note that too, Brett, that's incredible. We've got so much going on that sometimes this great news gets lost in the shuffle. And I mean, not only to get the award 7 years, but to get it last year during the pandemic year, I mean, I thought, okay, this is gonna be a year that we don't get this list. And again, this is an employee-based, it's their survey. They decide whether we get it or not. And I was so happy. I missed the last meeting, and so maybe you, you know, had some pre-warning on this, but I just looked in the paper and saw it and thought, yes, you know, I didn't screw up Dirk's perfect record. And so that's incredible. I think we are at least on the large employers, we're the only school district on there that I saw. I just think that's incredible, you know. I know anything can happen, and I know there's some districts that are seeing their names up in lights in bad ways, you know, party defendants and things, that it's nice that if we have, and we do have differences of opinion, that we can still kind of get around our school and get an award like this. I thank you and your team for all your work. That's just so incredible, and it doesn't just happen. So thank you.
Thanks. And again, it's the team, everybody working together. It's not a me thing.
The only other thing I have is the runoff smell, is that fixed, I'm guessing?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome.
Gary let me know yesterday, they got to the bottom of, it was a water heater issue ultimately.
That's good. Anything else for Dr. Lipnick? All right. Meeting adjourned. Just kidding.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want a quick recess?
Gotta have a little humor in this because it's. All right, we'll move on to 3B, return to learn update. Just as a reminder, this is just going to be a discussion. Everybody knows with the federal judge granted the temporary restraining order prohibiting it. So whatever we have, this is our time to discuss as the board of how we would like to proceed with this. So with that, I'll leave it.
Do you mind if we start the discussion on the legalese aspect? Because I know there's been some contention about that even amongst ourselves this last week, because it's the way that different school districts are handling this is just ridiculous.
I don't care where we start, or if you want to take off with that, that's fine.
You know me, I love the sound of my own voice. So it's a fault. I know it. So I've not been shy. I'm very concerned with the legal aspect of this and the exposure that comes into it. So much so that I haven't even really started considering the question of masks themselves, but just more of, do we get sued and how much does it cost us if we do? I know that some of the school districts in the west part of Iowa have chosen to do nothing. Very literally, they didn't vote anyway. And there are some other districts in the eastern part of Iowa who very clearly said, we're doing this so we don't get sued. So what's been the thought process that we've gotten so far? Any information on that particular regard? Do we actually have a choice, or is it more like what the ACLU was saying and Representative Donahue was saying, that there really isn't a choice involved?
You know, from the advice that we've been given from council is that there is a choice.
Okay.
But with any choice, there's risk, and it's a matter of what level of risk the board's comfortable with.
And you know I've asked you this, but for public record, do we have a dollar amount assigned to said risk? Because there's a difference between a $10,000 risk and a $10 million risk.
Yeah, I think it's too variable to give an answer to.
Okay. Because $10,000 is one thing, $10 million is an entire school. So not that you want either,
But one thing I think we have to remember on the legal side of it too, is that this is bound to be overturned again, where you have, I mean, it's just part of the process. We're going to go back and forth. I mean, this could take up to months.
Yeah.
They say a couple weeks, but that's on the good end. It's with
Gary, you shake your head like
with any legal.
I'd be
yeah.
surprised if anything happens in the legal world in 2
Yeah.
weeks.
I'm guessing whatever decision we make on this, it's gonna probably be through the holidays, if not longer. Just for the whole process to get over. I mean, that could be next year, who knows? And that's something we have to ask ourselves, you know, is it about the money, or is it about other things that we probably need to discuss about?
Unfortunately, with anything in the world of public administration, money drives it a lot of the time, but we definitely need to be considering other things as well.
But if we did everything based on the scare tactic of being sued, we wouldn't, why just plastic bubbles and
Fair.
don't let the kid, I mean, there wouldn't be public education, I guess, so.
That's fair, but I don't think that we do, at least in the 4 years, you guys have done this longer than I have. At least in the 4 years, I can't remember a specific situation where it's been teed up like this. Where I mean, where literally the ruling is the playbook on how to sue, unfortunately. It's reckless.
Well, and that's why my personal feeling is it's going to be overturned and go back. Now, the process won't just be overturned, it'll go back to that same judge and,
It'll ping pong.
but in the end, you're gonna have some form of overturning it, where we may go back to, maybe we won't, maybe we will, I don't know, but
Mhm.
I tend to believe that we'll go back to, you know, politics have to come out of it, and that's where we're at.
Agreed.
And we're nonpartisan up here, and that's where I hope when we make this decision, it's based on, you know, just what is right for Southeast Polk students and not what the Republican side says or the Democrat side, because that's where we've been. We all have our opinions and you're entitled to them, but we have to make sure we keep that piece of it out. I don't know how you exactly do it, but we gotta try, I guess. But
Very clear.
But he did write it to where it is a pretty slippery slope if you don't, but I think if you don't, if you do the mask mandate, I think you're gonna get sued on the other side of it too. Now, the risk is more, I think, on the ADA side of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Or actually, I'm sorry, I cut you off. It's more
No.
clear on the ADA side. You're right. It's, the pathway is much clearer, and I agree with you. You know me, I don't like overreach. This is just overreach from a different person. I prefer it. This should have been in our control to begin with all year, but it wasn't. But I don't know. Miss Severs, I agree with her that I don't think we should be doing blanket stuff. I think there may come a time where a classroom or a building may need it if we start looking at 7, 8, 9, 10%, but we're nowhere near there.
And that is kind of some of the things we talked about last year when we're told that it's gonna be a 2-week curve.
Yeah.
You know? It's
Yeah.
2 weeks. And then here we are, we're into our second year, so.
Well, what are we on now? Gamma, or there was another
Oh,
one?
no.
Delta is the prevalent one now, but now there's what, Gamma in Brazil, and I heard an H one. I don't remember what it was, but
I mean, looking at this decision, some things that I highlighted, and we do offer a virtual option, right, Dr. Lubnick?
Yeah.
And because some of the schools apparently did not here, now some must, because he said some schools are not offering a virtual learning option. So I could see how that would be problematic, and that's something we at least do offer. But then it says other schools offer a virtual learning option considering of pre-recorded videos that do not allow for interaction between the student and their teachers. That is what
That's more
we
like
have.
Ingenuity, which
Yeah,
is
that's
more
what I
the-
thought.
The asynchronous.
so we fall into that trap is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. Great.
Well, there's a lot in here, but I just wanted
Oh,
to,
yeah.
I had those questions when I was looking at this decision.
Well, what one of my attorney friends told me is it's a 19-page playbook with a 1-page decision on the end.
Yeah, you always go to the back, I'm in this business, so yeah, the first thing a lawyer does is look to the back page or two where the meat is, and then goes back and reads all the detail, but yeah.
Well, the other problem I have with some of this is, and it's not our issue. I think it's statewide, it's just wanting the kids while they're in the classroom because of the statement he makes in there about, like, I didn't mark it up, but it's the case law basically that every student has a right to
Free and public
yeah,
education.
the education piece. However, but when you have the inconsistencies of, we'll only protect you in the classroom,
Mhm.
but when we step foot out of that classroom, well, we don't care. And that's tough because I think either go all in or, as some of the folks tonight have stated, leave it at parental choice. I don't think, and that's again where the political part comes in is why aren't we taking care of the kids at sporting events? Because they still have to come into the classroom. Kids don't wear the mask properly. We've already went through that last year where, Dr. Fauci even says, don't touch your face. If you leave the mask on, if it's worn properly, it does work. But we know how kids are. They're masked down. If you go to, I don't care where you go, doesn't have to be just the schools. The masks are underneath the nose. Sometimes it's down because, you can't understand. And I think that is a valid point. So you have the ADA on both sides. Some need it because their immune systems can't handle it. And then in Ms. Seaver's point, that can't deliberate, can't comprehend what's being said. So I don't think as far as the lawsuit, I'm one of those that maybe, I'm willing to take a risk. How big a risk is that? What you asked? I don't know. But it's a risk that, because it's not, you can't just pick one side and say, well, it's ADA on one side. And that's the inconsistencies that add to it. Last year we made the football team 6 foot out along the sidelines. We had other precautions in place to, only 4 people for adults could go to the thing. Those things made sense. You can't put, a value on anything in one place, but then no value on the other. So,
What were you gonna say, Rick?
I was going to say, I'm glad to hear that we, the district, are using that 10% as a gauge. If a school reaches that school would go virtual, just that school, not all 11 schools. And I really like
Just to
that.
clarify, Rick,
Huh?
that virtual is not an option to send to school.
Okay.
If we were at that point where the county health
Yep.
recommended that we would close the building, it's like a snow day for every day that building's not open.
So that,
Virtual is not an option. That law changed July 1.
okay.
And we put together a petition that we had before the pandemic where we were trying to have that as an option for people who chose it, not for sending them, right?
Ask me that again. I'm sorry. I'm not
So
with you.
prior to the pandemic, we were trying to petition the state Department of Ed so that we could have an online option for our students if they so chose to
Right,
have
we're
that. And
working
we're still
towards
working through that.
approval there, yeah,
Okay.
but we're not there.
Thanks for the correction. I have a real concern, especially at the elementary level where they cannot be vaccinated. I think since we're not making a decision tonight, just something to think about would be if we had our elementary students wear masks because they're just not protected as much as the older kids. And they can't get a vaccine. They don't have, even though they may not get sick and may not have a lot of the symptoms that you might see in an older person, they still could be the person that gets it either at home and brings it to school, or vice versa, gets it at school and takes it home. And I think we wouldn't have to do the secondary kids, but, because they have the option once they're 12, they can get a vaccine. And I just think I can't visit schools like I used to, which I love to do, but I've been communicating with a lot of teachers, and, teachers were telling me that one teacher today, a class of 19, 5 of them were gone, and 4 of them have tested positive and one's being tested. Another teacher has 22 and only 15 kids were in class, and I could go on and on. I have 2 pages worth of, so I'm just saying, it's just, maybe we don't look at the whole district as far as masks, but maybe look at age groups, and that might be a possibility. to at least consider as we go into next, when we do just have a discussion that we're going to make a vote on. But I just think we need to keep our kids and our students safe and at all levels. And I hope everybody's getting vaccinated. I hope everybody's doing their best. If they're sick, that they stay home like we always have told them. And to help just the big picture of everything. But I'm just concerned. I understand the mask issue. I don't like wearing it either. It's annoying. It's hard to breathe. But you know, the other option is having our kids get sick or bringing it home or bringing it to school. It just scares me.
What are some of the other districts doing? I know we're gonna make our own independent decisions, we always do, but I'm always curious because information is information. So I know Sioux City is just doing nothing, but what are other people doing?
What I'm aware of right now would be Urbandale is doing PK-12 indoor masking. West Des Moines is meeting or has already, it's probably going on right now. I think it started
Yeah,
at
it started
5.
at 6, didn't it?
Their recommendation was the same, PK-12.
Mask.
Yeah. Waukee is meeting as we speak, and they are talking about lots of different options. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll hear later where they land with that again for information. On the other kind of in Eastern Iowa, Linmar is doing today. They met at noon, I think, and they're doing a PK-6 indoor mask. College community is setting a meeting for next week, I believe, to gather more information. Ankeny, I'm not sure where that stands right now. I think they were going to set another meeting, but I haven't seen whether they have or not. Johnston is meeting early next week.
Okay.
They met yesterday and tabled the issue. And I think that's about what I know of kind of our peer group.
The only other ones I know are Iowa City and Council Bluffs, and they both did full on. That's not a surprise in either one. So
They did what?
they both did full PK through 12.
In my comments a few minutes ago, I just meant inside. As soon as the kid goes out for recess or whatever, the mask comes off, let the kid breathe. I am a little concerned about buses, though, to be honest. 'Cause we're so close together.
I think a ruling just came
We're
out today
supposed
on
to
the
be.
buses.
Yeah,
That's probably one that we're gonna have to change,
Yeah.
depending on.
Because
And
there
is
is
that
actually a
because of some
mandate in place
federal-
for it. Yeah, it's the federal order from the city.
Things into that.
That's kind of where we started. There was the federal versus the state law, and our guidance was that the state law probably overruled. And so in our return to learn plan, we said, here is the CDC order and we'll have masks on all buses. But we haven't gone to the full.
Because the state law was a law and the federal one was merely an order from the CDC, the state law trumped it. But now that the state law is not enforceable, the order is enforceable and we are required. So even if we choose not to do anything on classrooms, I do believe we are required to do it on buses because of that order.
That's correct.
Is that just because of the state law, the current injunction, or is that
Yes.
clarification around
Well,
the
that's-
conflict?
I think we need more information on that because I have heard, and again, I don't know enough. This is where I need more information, but that within that the hearing on Friday, that the lawyers for the governor did say that the state law did not.
Yeah, they conceded it
Yeah,
or
they
something,
conceded.
didn't
Yeah, I
they?
need to know what that truly means. So stay tuned on that one. I'll be asking for more information.
So that
And whether
that-
it's just with the pause button or if it's no matter what.
okay. So that potentially is a different decision than.
I don't know that it is a
Correct.
decision. If the governor has conceded that ground, then we don't have a decision there. We have an order that we have to follow based on federal law.
We have to take an action though on that.
Yes, because it's part of our return to learn plan. So
Oh, so we'd have to alter the return to learn plan.
So I guess, were you gonna talk?
I had a question. Oh, I think that on the school districts, the thing, and I've been, I think people know where generally I'm at on this, despite my mask. I've had a cough all week, but so that's why I'm wearing one, but I've been tested. I don't have it. I mean, as you know, these day and age, if you have a sniffle or a cough, you make everybody nervous. So I went and got tested and I don't have the virus, but I have my usual. Yeah, I'm gonna get real close. I know if Lori was here, I better have this mask on
Is
or
it
I wouldn't even
rapid
get in the
test or
door.
PCR?
No, it was up and it was the whole
Okay.
deal. So what I was getting to, so this decision, which my mentor in the law told me, he's long since gone, told me there's nothing, because he used to clerk for a federal judge. He said there's nothing more powerful, and this shows it, than a federal judge sitting in their own district. Agree or disagree with the decision. This one single individual who's not elected by anybody has upended, the law that was voted on by an entire legislature and signed by a governor. And they are appointed by, appointed by a president and confirmed by Congress or Senate. And they serve for life. And so their decisions are reviewed by an appellate court, in this case, the Eighth Circuit. And that's a group of different judges that sit on usually three judge panels that decide. And had I known that this particular judge had this issue, I could have told Dr. Hlupnik about how I thought it would turn out. I even told a business lawyer in my firm about this. He said, oh yeah, that was no surprise. So, and that's because even judges are human. Sometimes I wonder, but they have their own, we all have our own viewpoints and things. And so, and their decisions are public. So you kind of get a read for what their thoughts would be on a particular issue and his background and everything. So this decision doesn't surprise me, but again, he's upended the will of our state legislature, at least temporarily. And we have to, so as a lawyer, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I can't just ignore this. It goes against what I would like to do. And I think we ought to have the, I guess in a way it gives us back the power, but ultimately it kind of sets us up, like you say. As I read it, it's like, well, here's a bunch of downside risk if we go another way than what his thoughts are on this. But all that said, the thing that amazed me, I'm looking and say, okay, at least our name's not up in lights. That's a good thing. Not yet. Not that it won't end up there somewhere, some point, some side of something. But Ankeny's name is in there and Johnson's name in there. And so it surprised me when they met, they met here recently, and they didn't change anything, at least not yet. And they're party defendants to this lawsuit. So that, at least, because I thought, well, we're going to have to do something here. But at least with those two school districts that are our peers, and they haven't immediately done anything. And I guess we're just talking about this, but tonight, and I get that, but we're just discussing and not taking action, but I'll be curious to see what they do. But I guess that makes me feel a little bit better that we don't have to rush to do something, and that we can be considered and decide, what is right for us. And if we decide differently than what Judge Pratt thinks, we're doing so with risk. That's for sure.
So you do this, we don't.
Yeah.
Talk to us about timeframes.
I have no idea. I will tell you generally in the law, the matter of weeks, that hardly ever happens. That's lightning fast. Nothing works that fast. And if you've ever had any experience with the law, it crawls. It grinds slow, but it grinds fine. And so, and this is a matter that's on the front end of a lawsuit. They've hardly got started, and this decision's been entered. There's been no trial. There's been no hearing. An evidentiary hearing. No evidence has been taken. And so I don't know procedurally. I do practice in federal court, but I practice in both state and federal court. But I'm not, this area of the law here is outside of the ADA is, but on the employment side, not on the education side. So I don't know how all that works procedurally. I do know that this decision will probably, if the TRO is what you do on a hurry up almost immediately. And then the next day they call preliminary. And usually that's a matter of weeks, it could be months. And that sounds like, from what I'm kind of reading between the lines, that what happens next, that Judge Pratt's going to have a hearing on what's called a preliminary injunction, which would then decide, will that stay in place till there's finally a full trial on the merits. That's usually months, many months to get to that. It sounds like the thought is, and I don't, again, I don't know, but what I'm hearing just in the news is it sounds like there'll be a hearing and then there's some kind of appeal after that. I don't know. I mean, there's something called an interlocutory appeal. I don't know if that's something available in this. It's outside of my realm. But all that's a long way of saying it. I doubt this ruling changes in any way soon. It might turn into temporary to permanent, or not permanent, temporary to preliminary. So it's still a little more carved in stone, but outside of that, I don't see anything happening immediately. I think that decision is going to be the law for a while.
If someone, we'll just split the difference here. So the governor has said that they're going to appeal this. Are they appealing it to Pratt, or who do they appeal it to?
It sounds like to me what the appeal would be to the 8th Circuit, but I don't think it's even at that stage yet.
No.
Because Pratt, I mean, there'll be a hearing for the preliminary injunction. And guess what? Judge Pratt's made this decision. He's considered, he is a thoughtful judge.
If they tempt him, he might make.
So my guess is this will not change. When you're going to the same decision maker, the chances of it changing, are not
Someone had
likely, I would say.
An attorney friend of mine had mentioned that the 8th won't touch it until the actual entirety is over.
Well, and that could be, and that would be a considerable length of time, I would think, but I don't know. And again, we'd have to rely on our own counsel. I know we've gotten some information from that, but of course we need to keep confidential so we can make, decisions with respect to that, not waive our attorney-client privilege, but that's what I'm relying upon mostly is that.
So I'll jump in here for a minute. First of all, I've read all the emails. I think we all read all the emails. We don't always have an opportunity to respond to everyone, especially this week. It's been quite a few. And I think we've heard a lot of opinions and thoughts on both sides of, do we mask, do we not mask, do we do it everywhere or not everywhere? I think there's a lot of valid points that have been brought up through the emails and through the public comments today. I guess the way I think about this is there's a few different angles. One is we have the health and well-being of our kids to think about, and that breaks off into multiple directions. This was brought up. I mean, you have the kids you're trying to protect from getting COVID because they're high risk, and then you also have kids that maybe have other learning needs where wearing a mask is a challenge. I know for me, wearing a mask with my glasses, I'm always fighting with that. So I know but there are costs to that, to adding masks. But I think that health and well-being is one thing. I think the practicality of implementing that, how would we implement that again and enforce it? It was a little bit easier when COVID was new and everybody was like, let's just mask and not deal with it for the most part. But now that we've had our masks off for a while, it's a lot harder to put them back on. So I think that's going to be a challenge. And I don't know, we haven't done a poll or a survey or had people vote on it. And I don't think that's something we'll probably end up doing. But my guess is from the responses I've heard that there's probably a majority that would either be very against it or would just prefer not to, but might go along with it anyway. So I think there's implementation concerns. And then there's the legal aspect, which I think we've talked quite a bit about so far, which is by not doing it, we're taking on a risk. By doing it, we're maybe taking on a slightly different risk. So, I mean, I kind of share a little bit the concern that you had, Mr. Powell, with the elementary students. I'm less concerned about junior high and high school from the standpoint that they've had the opportunity to be vaccinated. And I think that's been shown through studies and everything that's the number one protection against this. If you want best protection, it's the vaccination. Masks and distancing are kind of the next tier, the way that I understand things. So for me, when you're looking at junior high, high school, there's more opportunity for them to protect themselves, and maybe less requirement or need for the mask. When you're talking about the pre-K through 6, I think that's more of, I guess, a debate or a discussion as to, for those that haven't had that opportunity, which hopefully is coming in another month. I think October.
Halloween is what their best guess is at the moment for approval.
Yeah. So in this time frame, I think that's my concern. Now we've got our dashboard, and we've looked at those numbers, and I mean, definitely we've had cases. It seems right now, I mean, fairly stable. I don't think we've seen a huge jump. I know in the community we have, and there was a dip, and I think everybody was excited, like, hey, it's coming back down, and then it jumped all the way back up again. So I think it's still out there, it's real, and Delta spreads a lot faster than the original form. I don't know about Gamma and whatever the other ones you were talking about.
I don't know what the other name is, but.
So that's kind of my concern, is really that age group that can't be vaccinated, from a health and well-being standpoint. As far as the implementation, I think if we do it across the board, we're going to have the lowest legal risk, but I think it's going to be the hardest to enforce. Even if we say it's a mandate, I think that there will be a lot of people showing up without masks or not wearing them appropriately. I think there'll be a lot of pushback with that. So I guess that's my concern there is, in an ideal world, if everybody was vaccinated, if everybody wore a mask perfectly, I think that we would be able to get rid of this virus, or at least get it to the far background of society. But I don't know that either of those things are realistic. I think that we're gonna always have people that don't want to get the vaccine, and that's their choice. And we're also gonna have people that don't want to wear masks, and right now that's their choice. So I guess I'm not really making a particular recommendation. I'm just saying that I think we do have to consider some of the factors behind this injunction. Some of them probably are political, just like some of them were political on the other side. But I think there is some realistic concern there. If you look at our public health institutions like the CDC, Iowa Department of Public Health, Polk County, the Academy of Pediatrics, I mean, all of them are saying, these are the things that will best protect you. So I think we need to take all of that information along with the legal side of it and kind of decide what's best for our district here, what makes sense based on what our numbers and our situation.
So, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to dive into enforcement a little bit, because my understanding was last year was a different animal because we were under a public health emergency order. And this year we're no longer under that. Is that correct? The governor doesn't still have that running?
Correct.
So because of that, things like exclusions for religious and medical reasons were minimized because public health trumped. With that not being the case, how does that function in this particular realm?
We've got an exemption form, if
Okay.
that's what you're asking me, and
Yep.
for the two reasons that you outlined, and a person or a family would just fill that out.
I will say the thing that amazes me, we're talking about, well, the little kids don't have the option for the vaccine yet, and I know these numbers can move, but I'm looking at 6 of our 8 elementaries have no COVID cases, either kids or staff.
Less than 5.
Oh, less than 5.
Yeah.
Okay,
One, but
not,
less than 5.
All right. But, okay, so, but their point is they're small. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
given the
Do you wanna-
number of people in the building, I mean,
Jason, do you want to open that for us, that PDF that's on there? Because that's got the numbers that we're looking at here, so you guys can see them too. The only one that's really kind of approaching high would be Delaware, and I think that puts them at what, like 5% or something, or
It'd
close
be
to
under
it,
that. Yeah, a little under that.
a little under 5%. So I mean, even they're still under the 5% model. I mean, the high school would be at what, 1.5, and they've got the most cases, but there's also 2,300 kids there. So
true.
oh, just wait till next year where it's almost 25.
You know, one of the points that has come up is our numbers are higher right now. And I can't remember if you have those on the off the tip of your tongue, but it was pointed out that these numbers are higher this year, but last year we had over 200 in quarantine that we never knew if they were positive or not because they didn't get tested.
Okay,
So when you compare apples to apples, did we really have
right.
where the number is as low as what we think?
Thought they were, right.
Well, and we can't really compare to last year because it's not as simple as just saying we had masks last year versus this year, because we also had hybrid scheduling, we had social distancing. we
But
had
you
all of
didn't,
those
but
mitigation factors.
well, you don't have masks right now, and that's what I'm saying. So the
Yeah.
numbers, are they comparable with no mask versus masks that we had last year? And we were still, I'm still convinced that no matter what, you're gonna have outside
Oh, yeah.
resources that are gonna be causing most of this. I think our teachers still take precautionary measures to this day. I don't think they're backing off. They're still cleaning desks. They're still, you know, and maybe there's some mitigation stuff that we can take of, you know, obviously we know we can't everywhere do 6 foot, but can we spread those desks out? You know, if we're talking with the ruling, the ADA piece of it is very strong. We can't argue that, you know, but when you look at, I think Dirk told me 10% of our population is 504 special ed.
That's the state average, isn't it? It's 10%.
We're closer to between 11 and 12 for IEPs.
So we're higher.
I can't answer the 504 question.
Oh, okay.
I would need Charlie to give us that.
But as far as, you know, health concerns, I mean, that's, you know, so not every class has somebody in there has some kind of a, whether it's autoimmune,
Yeah.
I think
Medically fragile
asthma or
Immunodeficient, autoimmune, something of that nature.
you know, so are there other mitigation steps that we can take for not necessarily class by class, and I guess it would be class by class, but you're not removing them if they get to 10%. Maybe that's where they have to mask up when those students are in the classroom. I don't know. I'm just
I mean, that's a more targeted way maybe to handle it. Another thing I noticed, that Polk County Health Department had some links out to like different COVID resources, and one of them was about the portable air purifiers. And I don't know if
we still have some of those, don't we, Gary? The air purifier.
You would have to be brought in from select offices or rooms. Mostly handling that to our air handling systems.
Mhm.
The adjustments and changes that have made to that. As well as the ozone machines. Getting our air handling systems on instead of going into nighttime shutdowns. So continually circulates what we're doing throughout the buildings.
So, I mean, it sounds like we're doing a lot to keep our air clean right now, but I don't know if that's another, you're talking about alternate strategies to get
Yeah,
the same
just-
goal. If you have a room with people that are medically fragile, is that an extra precaution where we could have, I mean, there's a cost to it.
Yeah, but I mean, I get it. Those that in our goal is, you know, help one another out. I mean, we need to, our community's kind of at havoc right now because we're fighting against each other, but there's got to be some ways to help, you know, please this side and please this side. You know, in union negotiations, if everybody walks away mad, you're usually you've probably done something good, but this isn't, I mean, you can't, can't put that on this one, even though, you know, it's really, nobody's gonna be happy one side or the other. One side's gonna get what they want, the other side's not. And you hate to even put it that way, but so I think, you know, mitigation steps that we can take, I mean, because we did it last year. I mean, I know that, well, you know, the surface piece of it really isn't as concerning anymore as the direct contact. But how do you know, 6 foot, we're still practicing 6 foot distancing in places. Everywhere you go, they still have those dots on there and want you to be 6 foot away. You know, what else can we do or go back to if we've got some that, I'm sure some teachers have went back to, you know, some normalcy before COVID, but do we spread desks out? Do we make sure that, you know, we protect those that, you know, do have the medical needs? I hate to put masks on everybody. And let's say, you know, then where you at? I mean, you're in this for the long haul, because it's not going to be 2 weeks. It's not going to be 4 months, as we learned last year. Once we went into this, we went into it, and it took the governor to get out, whether you agree with it or not. It wasn't budging. And I guess that's the thing that, you know, yeah, you don't go against the federal judge very often, but you have to look at it as, you know, why did we have to get to this point? We went all summer, and to the point of the Iowa State games, yeah, I've been up there. I've got season tickets.
Rub that in, why don't you?
I'm not saying, you know, it's tough for me to say, because I'm actually Iowa. You know, my family pays a lot of tuition to Iowa State, so it's kind of like, give them more money. But I don't know. That's the frustrating part, is we've got people making decisions, and even us, you know, I'll call us, we're clowns. We're making decisions because we're in these spots, when it really should be the parents making these decisions for their kids. I don't care what side you're on, because the ones that are saying, well, my child has this, my child is this. Some of them don't even have medical issues. It's just, my family believes strongly in wearing a mask. The other side, you know, you look around the community. I don't need an email to tell me, you know, what direction. We talked about this yesterday. They were coming in probably strong when we met yesterday about, well, I was late to the meeting, but when I got there, it was 50-50-ish on what emails were coming in on both sides. But I don't, you know, an email doesn't tell me, it tells me where your concern is. We do appreciate those emails, even though some people don't appreciate the emails back, because you pick a side or whatever you do, but those emails aren't really that much more than what I can see out in the community. And not taken away from either side, but that tells me what society wants. And shame on me, but this judge is, I mean, I don't see how he can do that.
Can I say something?
He can, I just don't physically see it. I can't put my mind into the concept of why we're taking that choice away from each family, because each family has a way and a right to protect their own child. And I get the side that we have the right, you know, that we should be protecting other people too that can't protect themselves in a way. And that's where I'm kind of caught, is how do we do that? What can we do? Have we thought of everything? And doing it without getting sued.
Can I piggyback upon that, Brett?
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so ventilation, probably one of the least obtrusive and most effective mitigation efforts we can do. Kind of rewind that to the proposal I gave each of you last year, as far as the company that kind of set that up, where they were going in schools and setting up their purifier units, stuff like that within high density areas. So I know that's an expensive option, but it's also the least obtrusive. And like if you reference that big old Georgia study where they looked at those 90,000 kids last year and like compared the schools with mitigation efforts versus the schools without, the whole masking thing was one that they CDC said was there was no statistical difference between the schools that had it, the mitigation efforts in place, and the schools that did not. And it was like 4 cases per 500 versus like 5 cases per 500. Or I mean, it was something super low as far as that goes. But the ventilation in those studies still was like the big kind of thing they pointed to as well, as far as even in their small differences they had was still had the most statistical impact as far as a mitigation effort. So that's something that's not obtrusive, not going to bother any of our students as far as that goes. Second, I think we just need to take a slow and methodical approach to this. So we don't need to try to be legal experts or medical experts. We have a plan in place until we see a problem or identify a trend. We are coming off of summertime. We're coming off the Iowa State Fair. Highest cases we've had around in a while. That will go down. It's just being compounded by RSV and I mean, kids getting hospitalized with a common cold. So those immune systems that we've shut down for the last 18 months, they're just going to take a while to get fired back up and start protecting our kids again. So that's, I mean, concerning all around as far as if we start to try to mask up and kind of shut that stuff down again. So we need to be exposed to small amounts of bacteria, germs, viruses, just to keep our immune system primed, just like we're doing with the vaccine. So, and then relative risk. This is a hard one. The word safety, risk, death gets thrown in here. A healthy child right now during COVID, I have a little worry about right now as far as that goes. I mean, kids have like a 0.002% chance of being hospitalized from COVID. So, I mean, that's like less than 2 in 100,000 chance. Deaths right now, the flu and COVID combined since the start of this pandemic, March of 2020, account for less than 1% of pediatric deaths. So as far as safety, what we're protecting them from, yes, COVID's real, COVID's out there. We can get sick from COVID. We can even die from COVID. Our pediatric healthy population, I'm not worried about. That's why when they say treat it like a childhood illness, it's not so far-fetched on my end of the world. We still have the option of vaccinating down to 12. I think if you want a little extra insulation on top of that, a little extra protection, that's a fantastic thing. I'm not concerned that under 12 that we don't or can't vaccinate right now, just because that risk is still small. The Delta, yeah, it seems like it's crazy transmissible. We can't really argue that. What it's not is more virulent. So it's not creating any kind of more severe disease in our kids. So again, a huge win when you look at schools, when you look at kids, but that's a population that we don't have to worry about. So I just kind of want people to digest that. Probably a 26 times or greater chance of dying in a car wreck than she does of having any kind of adverse event from COVID. So, I mean, risk for me, like when you said, well, hey, we need to define legal risk. Oh boy, hold on. We need to define legal risk and stuff. It's all relative. This is very relative as well. Oh dear Lord. So, there's things to think about when we talk about safety and talk about kids. So, like I said, my whole thing is let's do what we can for the kids, but let's, try to accommodate all of them as best as we can. And I do think a parent survey or a stakeholder survey for that matter, is kind of overdue as far as it give us a good indication of kind of what the people that we represent want to, as far as I think we definitely need to weigh in on parent opinion as far as when it comes to their kids and safety and where we need to kind of go as far as direction in school, especially in matters like this that are still basically unprecedented.
Yeah, I would agree, Tom. I think a survey, you take the lawsuit and all the political stuff out of it. I think if we were at the table here last year without the governor jumping in and making taking the masks away, I'm not sure where the board would be. I'm not going to go back and try to guess who would vote where, but at least I think a survey now going out would give us an idea what the community is saying in truth. Of course, you do risk not everybody doing it and you only get a percentage, but I think we've done fairly well on the surveys that we've done in the past for other things school related, not necessarily COVID, but so I think we'd have good participation in that. And then that could give the board, the board we have to figure out is the lawsuit piece, risk on that. But nevertheless, we still have to figure out what is our community truly telling us. Because we sit up here and guess. And I can sit here and say, well, look at the community. Well, maybe there's people that don't want to wear a mask because maybe they're afraid. I don't know. But
Right. I just think we can set some kind of parameters so we have guidelines to kind of go off of. And I'd like to identify and kind of mitigate those, like you guys were referencing earlier, on a more like an individual basis. So like small group. So if we have a problem in one building or one class, you know what I mean? We could have more flexible mitigation efforts as far as if we need to step in and maybe do something a little bit extra for a short term. That is something we could definitely do. So, I mean, if we want to kind of plan on something, that would be something that I think would be viable as far as having some kind of set parameters. So if we get to any kind of absentee rate, 10, 15, 18%, whatever we want to set it at, that we look at that no matter what the illness is and say, okay, how can we be a little more proactive in this or shut this down? Or what can we do right now to calm this as far as that goes? Because usually all those are small little waves and stuff.
Well, 10 is where county steps in, isn't it? So
That's
15,
exactly what happened. Yep.
Okay, so 15, 18 wouldn't even be possible because 10 is when the county would step in. So what'd you have, Rick? I'm sorry.
I was gonna I know it's been said, I just want to repeat it. The fact that Dr. Lupnick said when it gets to that 10%, don't go to virtual, that it's like a snow day. That scares me to death. Having a school, or like Tom said, if we do a class or however it's done, to be out for 2 weeks or 10 snow days, I mean, that's a lot of lost learning. I mean, it's just, so I think we need to keep our kids safe. I think we need to think about keeping our classrooms safe. And since we don't have that option, the thought of our kids having 2 or 3 weeks or a month of school snow days just doesn't, the best teaching is face to face. That's pretty well accepted. It's just keeping our kids in school, keeping our kids safe. Like Tom Dave just said, maybe we look at option like certain classrooms or but we got to do something to protect our students and staff.
Right. And just to clarify, isn't the 10% where they come in and just give recommendations? It's not like an automatic shutdown now, is it?
It just depends. Yeah, exactly. So we've had those conversations this school year, and we haven't shut it down.
Right. And I was thinking of that from last year too, where it's like that was kind of like the threshold for when they come in and say, okay, let's dig a little deeper, see what's causing this, and then let's see what we can do about it. Because like right now with, like I said, with RSV and colds and everything else going around, I mean, it is crazy sick. So on a non-COVID year, so even our tiny little COVID numbers we have now still, I mean, right, it's just cumulative as far as 1% COVID, 9% something else. So that's what we're seeing in the hospitals and everything else. So yeah, I think it's good to look at that. But yeah, I mean, it's on a normal year, this may become part of our normal year. It's just another contributing factor to something towards that 10%.
Couple of things, just really quick while we're on this topic, survey. I mean, is that something the board would be interested in doing?
I see no harm in it.
I don't see a problem doing it.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent Brett a copy of Carlisle's, where it was just kind of a stakeholder survey where basically it was like, how do you feel about the mask mandate? And it was just kind of or a no mask mandate. And it was just kind of a yes, no, or strongly agree, strongly disagree, that kind of thing. I mean, it could be something very basic just to kind of get a pulse as far as where we are there.
I think Dirk and I talked about that a little bit. And I actually got that. I sent the survey to him, and some of the I think we had 5 questions, grade level. So it was name, email, the role, parent, staff, or student, so it would include everybody. Mask required PK through 6, agree, neutral, or disagree. Masks required PK through 12, agree, neutral, disagree. Mask recommended but not required, agree, neutral, disagree. So try to keep it as brief and to the point of what we're looking for. And if there's any other thoughts that you think we need to know from the community, we could definitely add those as well.
Well, I mean,
think-
I'm not opposed to anything where we can gather more stakeholder feedback and data. I think we just want to be careful that we're not setting an impression that this is a vote.
Right.
Yep. And
No,
that
that's- yeah.
because there is the legal aspect,
Right.
there are other things to factor in, but we do want to know what people
And that, I guess that,
prefer.
yeah, what I said was taking the lawsuit away from it. If we had to go back to last year before the governor, were we ready or prepared to take
Yeah.
the masks off?
Well, we did. I mean, we
Well, we didn't.
We
We only
talked
did
about that the
because
week
the
before
governor
Superintendent.
said you got it. The governor said you had to, so we had to have a vote.
one of them.
That's my recollection.
Before.
Yeah, I don't think we were prepared to do that, but I don't want to go back and hash that. I think this would give us an idea where we stand if this lawsuit isn't there. Now, we still have to deal with the lawsuit when we, and that's the thing that we have to figure out as board members is what's the risk of that, but the survey does help us as we move down the line. Because if we go back, let's just say the governor says, not gonna do anything. The federal injunction gets overturned, but the governor, which I don't think she's gonna do. But let's just say it went back to us, just making the decisions, that would give us some tools.
The scary thing about a survey though is, like Chad said, it's not a vote, obviously, that's very important. Number 2, what percentage of our communities actually gonna take it? If a survey is just 20% of the vocal people taking it, it's not really telling us much because 80% aren't participating in that survey.
No different than school board elections.
That's true.
It's actually worse than
Thanks.
school board election.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, I gotta,
I also think, President Handy, that if we're gonna survey the parents and the students, that we need to survey our staff.
well, it was
Yeah,
included on there,
okay,
so all
okay,
3.
yeah.
And that's another thing. I mean, again, if you want to go by emails, look at how many students emailed us and
Right.
there wasn't one wanting a mask. I didn't, at least I
I
didn't
had
get
at
one.
least one, but not, you're right.
I mean, so
Yeah.
we could just go off of that
Yeah.
and we could kind of do our own unscientific poll of, well, how many emails did you get and what was yours?
Mhm.
What Mr.
Right.
Krill get and down the line, and then we can compare them and say,
Yeah.
well, all right, here's the majority, this is what the community wants. Or we can do the handy way, well, this is what's going on in the community, we'll just, I think this is just one way of, we do it for other things in the district, why wouldn't we do it for this? I mean,
I think what we're gonna find out in our survey, just as a guesstimate, is that we've got somewhere around 35 and 35, and then the other 30 that just don't care, they just want to go on with life. So do one or
I
the
think
other
you'd
and
be
get over it.
surprised, I think now when you force it, I don't know. I guess that's why.
Well, it's like speed limits. If I told you tomorrow that the speed limit was lifted, some people would go ham, but some people would still probably only drive 45 because that's what they do. So,
All right, so we'll go ahead and get that sent out. Then the other thing that I just want to bring to our attention is the board prepared for, if we do go to masks, if that's what, I'm not saying that's the direction we're going, so those listening, don't get me wrong, that's not a decision made. This is if the board said we want masks, are we prepared for all the exemptions to come through? Because that could cause it to where we're back in the same boat we are, where people aren't wearing masks.
well, and not to be Captain Obvious here, but the kids have to take off their mask to eat lunch.
Yeah, and then you're
And I mean,
sitting,
we're not hybrid anymore, so everyone's there. So even if they're in the classroom, they're still unmasked in the classroom eating, so you lose all the protections there.
then they go out for recess and they play together with no
Well, but
mask
that's
on.
outside.
No, but you're gonna be jumping all over each other.
But it's
And then-
outside. The
Yep.
open air makes a difference. That's what the studies show, so on and so forth. But inside, they're eating lunch inside because we ain't gonna sit them out in January to eat outside because no one's quite that cruel, I sure hope. But I mean, we don't have the feasibility of doing 6-foot distance. So you don't have what we had last year with lunches. Even if we did move into the classroom, which I'm not advocating for at this time, you're still on top of each other. Because a lot of our elementary classrooms, they are face to face. So you're not getting the benefits there. So I'm, like I said earlier, and not to keep picking on you, Ms. Severs, or Mrs. Severs, excuse me, but I think we need to be more targeted in this particular approach. I think we need to keep an eye on individual schools and individual classrooms. And there may come a time where a classroom or school does need to have additional mitigation factors. If we start seeing, as Tom alluded to earlier, 15, 18% in a classroom or a grade, we may have to take steps temporarily for that particular grade. But I don't think going whole ham right now, especially when we're looking at 1.5%, is necessary. But send the survey. I think it's a good thing to do.
Ventilation, 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 ventilation.
Are you trying to sell us something, Tom, or what?
No, I'm just saying that's easy. And I mean, like buildings like Spring Creek. So are the ones, it's older, doesn't have the greatest heating and cooling system. I think they had like 80% humidity last year. It's just things that, little things like that we can improve. I know it's costly, but it's also very beneficial. And it would like help us out in the overall illness rate period. So it's just one of those things where it's a big investment. Think of that as a capital improvement, but I think it's good going forward period, because we're going to be dealing with this junk for a while. It looks like.
When you go out to Prairie Meadows, I mean, they have unbelievable, I mean, it almost sucks you up when you walk by one of their vents. The airflow is just amazing out there. So I don't know. I don't think we have that kind of money, but
Just ask Prairie Meadows for it. I mean,
for
they're in our
Prairie Meadows
backyard,
grant, yeah. But anyway, on the exemption piece, does everybody understand what I'm talking about on that?
Yeah.
That we could end up back in the same.
Because we're not, I mean, there's very clear delineated legal guidelines for exemptions on what we can and cannot do. So it may be a moot point in the end, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I brought up like the implementation factor and how practical is that going to be? I mean, I think to Adam's point, I don't know what the percentages are, but there's a percent on one side that are all for it. There's a percent on the other side that are all against it. And there's a chunk in the middle that probably go along either way. So it'd be a matter of how many people are willing or interested in filling out an exemption, but it could be a good number. So we have to be prepared to handle that. And also, what does that do to the effectiveness of the masking effort?
I'm also still concerned with the legal aspect. I'm sorry, that's going to hang up on me until I get a number that tells me.
Well, and I guess that's where the board said, all right, we'll put masks on.
Yeah.
But there's the exemption piece that I want
Yeah.
to be very clear that could come back to where we're same boat we are now.
But we're not, because we've done our due diligence as far as the law is concerned.
Well, and what do we do for those students? I guess I'll direct this back to Dr. Lupnick. What do we do for those students that just don't fill out an exemption, but they choose not to wear a mask?
Yeah,
You just said, no.
something we'd have to talk through for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see suspending kids, for choosing their right, or family's right to not wear a mask. And I'm not trying to give ideas out there. I don't want anybody to believe that, because, I mean, it's no different than Judge Pratt giving 25 pages on how to sue, but I think it's fair on both sides. You have to, again, I'm dead.
I mean, the biggest thing to me is we want to provide the best education we can for our kids. We want to keep them safe. We don't want to go back to this hybrid thing or the virtual thing. Like that would be like worst case scenario. So I think whatever we decide, we're not deciding tonight, but whatever we decide or don't decide to do, we all have to remember is that's like a point in time decision that could change. And if the numbers on this dashboard go up considerably, or we have to, consult with the health department, we may hit a point where if things haven't reversed on this legal side, that we may have to take some action there. So it's all, I guess I'm just saying it's all fluid in terms of.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, Dr. Lutnick and crew have always been very good about taking it day by day. I don't want to get into a habit of where we were last year, which really frustrated people, is every 2 weeks we come back to the board and then
And
the
we're
board
still in
says,
a rut.
"Oh, well, gosh, let's do this." And then
Inertia.
yeah.
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 I would say, I just back to Rick, you brought up the point, and I agree with you. In fact, it's in Pratt's decision. I agree with him on that part of it, is that there's nothing better than that in-person experience. And I think that's his point. Medically fragile children shouldn't be relegated to, they have to take it, online. I think that's the whole point of most of these pages. And so I've got several emails, and I read them all. I respond to very few of them. There's just too many of them, but I do read them all. And, I see some of them say, well, these kids, if they've got problems, they can just pull their kids out. Well, yeah, they can do that. And some have elected to do that, but it really does deprive them of the full benefit. And it's a matter of, okay, how can these kids that have these medical issues get the full benefit of the public education and not, have to jeopardize it from doing it remotely, I guess. So I think masks or whatever, some of these things that we've talked about, we're going to have to be creative, because I think the more things we can show that we've done or tried to do to make it work for those kids, maybe masks is part of it. Maybe it's limited, maybe it's in certain areas, certain classes, but as a lawyer mind looking at this, and somebody's second guessing every decision we made after the fact, I want to be able to show that we've done something rather than we did nothing. So
I don't think, in Dr. Lotnick, I think this goes back to one of the discussions we had about targeting the classroom for information purposes. I don't think we could do individual classes for mask mandates outside of just like, I'm sorry, let me back up. If we're looking at individual classes, it would have to be in a reaction to percentages, not to the presence of a student in that class.
I
because
agree.
Then it identifies them, and we'd be in violation of the
absolutely.
ADL.
No, I'm talking about some kind of a
Yeah.
flare up.
Don't you love legalese?
We also could consider, since we're trying to keep the numbers down, staggering our lunch times like we have in the past. I know that's not fun, but we know they're going to take off their mask to eat lunch, obviously, and the less kids we have out there, the better.
So you got PE,
PE, yeah.
lunch. I mean,
And I think when PE students go out, I'm only talking elementary here. But when they go outside for PE, they should take off their masks. If the teacher takes them outside for an activity, obviously. I'm not talking about PE teachers doing that if they take the kids outside and the kid goes outside, the mask comes off.
yeah, well, until winter time anyway, and then
Yeah,
you're kind of stuck inside. But
yeah, we do live in Iowa.
So what are we gonna do?
Yeah, when does this come up again then? Our next meeting, I suppose?
so our meeting's October
It's
7.
actually
So
3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
That may be too long. I don't know.
Okay, so there
Again,
might be a
that's
special
the-
meeting.
That'll be up to the will of the board. My recommendation is that you put this survey together, send it out, set a time frame for how long you want it out there. And then once we have that more data, then you can decide when you would want that special meeting.
Would we potentially need to meet sooner on the bus decision, or maybe, yeah.
So I guess we could put I'm not sure where Tech's at on this. I know you've had them working on it.
Yeah, I mean, this can go out tonight, I
Okay.
think, as long as we agree on what's.
How long did we get for the survey last year to start the year? You remember what I'm talking about, the
Yeah,
beginning of the
I
year
do.
survey,
I'm
was it a
trying
week
to
or 10?
remember.
Two.
I feel like it was a week, but I
It was-
can't.
It was short.
I think it was like a week or 10 days. It was one of the two. And then I think, did we have decent participation in that particular survey?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we stick with that time frame. We're running with it. I know we usually don't do any participation here, Mr. Handy, President Handy, but we have people that want to speak, but I don't think we usually do that, but it's up to you as the board president.
Majority rules here, I'm not.
Actually, it's your choice under Roberts, so.
Only you could.
Oh, yeah, if nobody disagrees with it, I'll open. I think this is the time. Yeah, Mr. Lusk, go ahead.
We want to,
You need to come up to the mic because otherwise they can't hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Todd Lust again. And you were talking about that the survey is really going on right now. I mean, you got the teachers are at school. The kids are coming into school. The parents are speaking. How many kids, what's the percentage of kids wearing masks coming into school every day?
Probably roughly 10%. I guess
10%.
I don't know.
90% are saying we don't want masks. And we're going to take the chance that if the kids get flu, they get in. We've had kids. I had 4 of them. They used to get influenza. They get diarrhea. They get colds. We take them to the doctor. They prescribe antibiotics or something, and we keep them home until they were better, and we'd send them back to school again. You don't. Are the kids dying? Have we lost any kids? Have you lost any students in Southeast Polk to COVID? COVID alone.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Has anybody sued the school because their kid got COVID from the school?
It wouldn't be
Anybody.
information that you could have.
Huh?
That wouldn't be information that we could disclose here in a public meeting.
Well, but it's a public school, and if there are people suing you,
Well, yeah.
it ought to be.
It would depend on if there was a non-disclosure agreement signed or
Okay.
not, and we couldn't even tell you if there was one.
But I'm just going to assume then that there haven't been any lawsuits because you're concerned about one. But one that hasn't happened yet. And chances are it's not going to happen because how could you blame the school for a student getting COVID when you go to restaurants, you go to sporting events? And I mean, and if you're going to mask everybody up, are you going to put masks on all the basketball
We
players?
haven't made any decisions yet,
No,
I
but
guess.
I'm
And I
just
don't want
saying-
to, I don't want to cut you short. We've kind of broken protocol here, and I don't mean to cut you
No,
short, but
And
just in all
I
fairness,
appreciate that, but
I think what we need to do is probably just let the board, we'll make a determination if we want to do a survey. Your point's well taken. I
Right.
think we
And
get,
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to
No,
criticize.
and
anybody, but
I just,
sometimes this goes past common sense. For me.
yeah, well, the one thing, and I will, and I'll end it on this, and
Okay.
not to cut you short, but I think we do need to probably move the meeting along and figure out what we're gonna do, but I think as far as the lawsuit goes, and that is a very tough, I think what we forget is that it sets the school district up if we don't do something based on, it's no different than Governor Reynolds. She had that piece in place to say no mask mandates. If you do, you're susceptible to a lawsuit.
Right.
It's no different than what's going on now. It's just reversed, and we have to decide what's our risk worth? What do we want to do?
Right.
And so no decision's gonna be made tonight. This survey just, and I agree with Mr. Crab on this. This survey is not, because I agree with you. You look at the community, and that's exactly what I think it tells me, but it tells these people different things.
Yeah.
So I think we have to really reach out to somebody and say, all right, what is your preference? Because no different than we have the discussion with, parents say, well, my child goes to school with a mask on, and maybe they're picked on, or they don't wear the mask once they get there because they're afraid of what the other kids say. So I think that's where we're, at least what I'm thinking about on the thing is, people, when it's an anonymous, I can put my 2 cents worth in.
Sure.
I'll say exactly what I want to say, but I may not say it publicly.
Yep.
I think I'm with you. I think what we're going to get out of the results is we're going to see that maybe not 90-10, but I think we're going to see a higher rate that don't want the mask. That still doesn't have effect on what we have to do with this lawsuit. And that's,
Right.
that's the big piece that I hope everybody understands, is it really isn't going to come down to, do we mask, do we not mask? It's what risk do we want to put the school district at? Because that comes out of dollars out of our pockets in the end of, once we start putting out, if you put a number on it, $2 million or whatever that turns out to be, because if someone does die or gets severely injured, we have to decide what that risk is that we put on our staff, because they're the ones that have to deal with it and our attorneys have to deal with it. We get to make the decisions based on what we think you guys want, but then there's other pieces in it. So I hope you guys understand that. And it's not, because and I think everybody knows, I'm for no masking, but I think we have to look at the deeper issue. So not to cut you short. Yep.
So I'm not, you can mask or don't mask, and it's like the kids that might have some autoimmune diseases or something. They can wear a mask, and if these masks are so effective, why is there an issue with people not wearing the mask? And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not being critical of anybody. Please don't take it wrong. But it's the frustration that most of us parents are feeling because there's no consistency. You want to throw a mask in the classrooms.
And I'm going to stop you.
No,
I do feel bad. I called you up. I made the decision to do it.
I understand.
But-
I appreciate it. I won't say anymore.
But no,
These
but
are just questions.
points
I'm
well
just sitting
taken.
here.
Yep.
It's hard to understand.
I will say one thing on the lawsuit question that you raised.
Yeah.
It wasn't teed up like this before. There wasn't the ACLU circling, waiting for someone to screw up like there was before. That's not what we had last year. Last year was kind of an unknown. Everyone was working through it. Now it's teed up. It's very much in the spotlight. And I don't know if you'd agree with this, Gary, but basically I think ARC and ACLU and all these other ones, they're waiting for someone to do something stupid so that they can make a show of it. I don't want to be somebody's showpiece.
I just don't know how they get pinpointed on that.
They don't have to. The way that this works and the way that I understand it, and I may be completely wrong. I'm not a lawyer. I work in insurance, completely different. The way that I understand the ruling is it doesn't matter if someone actually gets COVID. It's the fact that we didn't do the precautions to prevent that from happening. So no one ever actually has to die from it. It's just we have to be negligent and not trying to prevent it. That's the way that I understand Judge Pratt's ruling. And that's why we've kind of been talking about, and with Tom talking about, are there other factors that we can show outside of masks that we are actively trying to prevent infection? And that's kind of what we're looking there. But the net result, like Brett was getting at, is, what's going to be the dollar liability here? Because not only do we have a responsibility for the education piece, we all have a fiduciary duty to make sure that we're not putting our district in harm's way from a dollars and cents piece. And that's kind of like earlier when I was talking about, I don't mean to be tacky. There's a big difference between a $10,000 fine and a $10 million fine. A $10,000 fine costs us a couple of coaches. A $10 million fine costs us an entire building, along with staff and everything else that goes with it. So that's where the calibration comes in. And if we can get past that we know that that's not a risk, at least for me, that allows us to start looking at, our mask good versus bad. But until we get past that piece, my mind can't even have that question. Because I can't put our district in a place, and granted, there's 7 of us, but my vote could not put us in a place where we'd be sued and possibly be out several $1 million.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move this along. Just obviously we can go back and forth on, right now, where the position, just to clarify, the position that we're in is we've agreed on the survey that'll go out, and then probably what are you guys good for on timing? I agree, we don't want to drag it
I
on
think
too
7
long.
days. I think it goes out tomorrow. I think it wraps up on Friday. Does that work for you, or?
I'm just looking for consensus, I guess, as far as direction to give staff, because they're the ones that have to do the work.
Whatever you think, President Andy.
All right, is 7 and out a week? Okay, we need time. We have to have time to compile it too, so we want to make sure we don't want them working on weekends compiling it, because we want to have an emergency meeting on Monday or something. So keep that in mind, that we're not gonna so I think
That's all. I mean, that gets us what we need to send out the survey. So
okay, all right. And then we can get clarification on the busing, because that may be an issue next week as well, or the following week, I guess.
Do we need to schedule another meeting now, or is that something where we can get the survey back, review the results, and then decide on timing? That's up to the board.
Yeah, but yep.
all gonna be bad for me. You guys schedule what you need to, and I'll try to make it.
Whatever you need.
I mean, either way, we gotta have a meeting for the buses, so.
Yeah, but it sounds like that may be a more immediate concern than this, so. Because that sounds like we don't even have any leeway in what we're allowed to do. So. How? We talked about exemptions earlier and that there's more broad exemptions because the state level emergency whatever is no longer in place. The federal level one still is though, isn't it?
I can't answer that.
Okay, because I wonder if those exemptions still would exist for the busing issue we were talking about, but that's a whole nother conversation. We'll have to get with our law team or legal team about that as well.
I think it would be one and the same, but that's a good question.
Well, because, yeah, I think it's one and the same, but I would wonder, I don't know.
All right, so the survey will go out, it'll go until next week. Early the week, that Monday, Tuesday-ish. How long does it usually take you to kind of put the survey or the?
We could be
compile
ready
it?
by that following Monday.
Are you doing it until Friday morning? You doing it? What, I guess,
I assume in the day Friday, just based on.
then the day Friday, okay.
Whatever you guys would like, we can do.
You guys good with end of Friday then, and then compile it Monday? We can get the results, make a determination on what direction we want to go from there. One thing that gives us, a little more time to see the numbers if they go up or down. We get more feedback from the community, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we didn't do action, because I think based on what we talked about tonight, now the community can absorb it and let us know what other conversations they got out of this today, I guess. So,
Dr. Halopnik, I hesitate to ask this because I don't want to keep going on and on, but if you have some feedback from public health, I've been watching the numbers, and have they given you any kind of overall where they think this is going or where we're at? I mean, within Polk County?
No, I have not.
Okay.
No.
I'd be less inclined to believe Polk County because that kind of bit us in the butt last
No,
year,
I
so.
agree, but I just was curious as if we had any information what their take was.
or anything else
Yes.
to learn? Oh, go ahead, Tom. Is that you, Tom?
No, I was just gonna tell Gary, no projections.
Yeah, right. No,
Okay, if there's nothing else on return to learn, we will move on to certified annual report.
Quickly, board, every year we file a state compliance report with the Department of Education. It includes 3 reports. Our certified annual report is a full submission of our chart of accounts along with balances, and that drives our annual transportation report. Miles input by Mr. Schultz, and then that also drives our special education supplement. All 3 reports were filed in a timely manner, which was due by midnight last night.
7:40, 59.
10:43.
All right.
He had a little time left. He was good. Any surprises, anything?
No, we'll get a chance to, every year it gets a little bit better. Every year the Department of Education throws on different business rules that we have to contend with. CARES was kind of a problem area this year just because of the different types of accounting we need to do for it. We'll get some more time to analyze the data. Next meeting, I'll have my year-end financial report to you. We'll talk more about those numbers at that time.
Any other questions for Mr. Pecom? Thank you. If not, 3D enrollment update.
Well, at the risk of sounding Pollyanna, I have a lot of really good news.
No, come on.
In terms of enrollment, it seemed like a week ago, we were plus 180 something or other. And that trend is kind of holding.
despite the fact that we had a number of families, their people are moving. It's just the way it is. But we're still plus 165. And Kevin did some homework for me, and I thank him for this statistic. And he said, we haven't seen 165 since October of 2015.
Wow.
That kind of an increase. So good stuff, very good stuff. I like, obviously we've got some classrooms that are full, but I would indicate there's nothing that's tipping over. That's obviously that's a really good thing to have nice, big, healthy classrooms of kids in them. Again, without getting, where we're getting nervous about class sizes and things like that. I think the overall average class size in the elementary class size in the district's still holding at 21, which again, I know other districts covet that number. I'm sure they do, because these are conversations that my job-alike colleagues across central Iowa and I talk about. So that, again, all good news on the enrollment front, that's for sure. Any questions? We've been talking about this, it feels like now for months, which is good. It's good to have that continued conversation. So I'm not really anticipating tons of questions from the standpoint of not a lot really has changed. It's just holding its own and looks great. And our communities are growing, schools are growing. It's all good.
Count day is October 1st.
Yeah. Now that number and the number you're looking at right now will end up being two different numbers that are calculated differently.
Right.
I'm just counting noses of students who are in classrooms. Whereas, certified enrollment is a whole different equation.
Gotcha. Okay.
But again, should be very positive, I would think.
Cool.
It's nice to see the 7 at the front of the number there, 7,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Just
right.
barely
Yeah,
at
that
the
was great.
moment.
It's right on the nose too. I
Yeah.
kind of giggled at that when I ran the numbers today. I went, oh, I'm not sure we hit exactly 6,000, whenever that
Right.
was. But it's fun to hit 7,000 right on the nose one time.
Maybe frame this one.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Horton?
Thank you, doctor. I called you doctor, sorry.
That's right. That's right. I wish I was one.
You are with these charts. These charts are wonderful.
Okay, I think my next topic, I'll
go
just
ahead.
run right into
Yep.
my next topic. And it's an introduction of a process known as Leader in Me. Got some slides for you tonight. I'm usually not a slide guy, but with this one, I felt like they're certainly appropriate. I'll give you a little bit of a backstory about how we came upon Leader in Me. And that was last winter, we had a meeting that was scheduled with representatives from the Leader in Me folks, who are a division of Franklin Covey. And the meeting was really set up because we had, actually Nate Balla, who's here tonight, has kind of a history with Leader in Me and the Franklin Covey people. And he and I got to talking about, his ideas. He had some really good ideas about what he wanted to do at Willowbrook at that time. Now, obviously, he's at Spring Creek. But we just started kicking it around and we thought, well, why wouldn't we have all of our K-6 principals and we'll give this thing a look, listen to their reps, sort of evaluate what kind of a process or program this might, that this is, and see if it's applicable to what we're doing here at Southeast Polk. So all of our folks showed up, which was great. And it was in the Willowbrook Library. And then we ended up, obviously, we liked what we heard. And we started to talk about what kind of vision we could create or started to envision what would this look like here at Southeast Polk. And but by the end of the conversation, we had a presentation, and then we all stayed after and kind of kibitzed afterwards and just talked about the possibilities. And really, to a person, every single principal said, hey, this is cool. I think this is something we could really use and something we could really do that could have like incredible benefits for kids. So we moved, at that time, we moved forward with what we called a pilot. But the pilot turned into, a whole flight crew. As people get excited, things happen that way. But so we sat down not long ago, had yet another meeting and talked about this whole idea of rebounding. Currently, we're all engaged in a book study that's talking about rebounding, sort of on the heels of what was a very, very difficult year for everybody. And we started talking about what school could be, should be, now that we know what we know about kids who've spent a year in a pandemic, who've done online learning, who have been taught by their parents, or who have not been taught for a long time, and what all is entailed with all that, and what are the implications for school? How should school change in order to fit what our kids need, and what we now know about the needs of kids? And they are different than they were 5 years ago, for sure. I know my needs are different than they were 2 years ago, after having lived through the at least round one, or whatever it is, phases 1 through 3, or now. And by the way, the new variant is called the Mu variant.
No.
It's the next letter in the Greek alphabet, just to fill in a blank that we kind of kicked around for a while tonight. But I would say now more than ever, we need to make school more engaging and more relevant to the lives of kids and families. We need to refocus on our vision of learn, lead, live, and make it come to life. The school needs to come to life for kids. It can't be straight rows. Here's the book, do the assignment, see you tomorrow. Not that it ever really was that. It really has never been that way. I think we think sometimes it's that way, but it's really not. But that vision needs to come to life. Our school needs to be different and focused on each and every student individually. There's so much more individual attention required for each child, whereas old conversations about groups of kids, we really kind of, in many ways, don't have them anymore. We're really talking about individual children when we're talking about win time and MTSS work that we're doing with kids. We're really looking at individual kids. That's why decisions, not unlike the one you talked about tonight, are so difficult. Because you are talking about all kids rather than some or one. Again, as we continue to work through the direct effects and the side effects of a worldwide pandemic on children, this thing we call school has to change. It has to be better than it was, maybe better than it's ever been. And again, some of these are my opinions, and I start to kind of pontificate. I apologize for that, but our students need to find their voices and take leadership of their own lives, and while learning to lead other people and lead themselves. We in the district, we have great evidence-based programs like PBIS, Olveus, bullying prevention program, the Mentors in Violence Prevention, and all kinds of social emotional learning that we're really uncovering now over the last 2 years for quite possibly the first time. And all that needs a connection. Because right now they stand as these silo programs, and there could be a connecting, sort of a connecting thread that could make it all very cohesive and really have the opportunity to change schools for the better. Amidst all that, we came to the conclusion as a group that Leader in Me has the capacity to do everything that I just said. Now, will it? I don't know. I'll let you know. As we get down the road, in 5 years, I think we'll be able to really answer that question. Did it work? But sure, I think all of us universally believe it has the capacity to do those things. It's implemented locally and literally all over the world. When you read the book, if you ever get that curious where you want to read the book, I was reading about examples from Singapore to Mitchellville. And it was pretty incredible what schools were doing, and in particular, what kids were doing because of the Leader in Me. We, again, in the book, countless testimonials for its effectiveness. And again, I get it. They're trying to sell books. They're trying to sell a program, but they're selling a great product that sure seems, that we believe in. It sure seems like it can work. The premise behind Leader in Me and the process is that students learn and apply Stephen Covey's seven habits of highly effective people. And the Leader in Me process centers on growth and development of students and the adults who work with them in 3 domains, which is not accidental: academic, life skills, and school culture and the school experience. And if you'll notice, each one of them lines up with 1/3 of our vision. It is about how do we operationalize, learn, lead, live, rather than just talk about it or read it out loud in a meeting. What does it look like when kids do these things? I think we can all identify, you know, we can identify those things, but I'm not sure there's been a concerted effort, you know, in this direction. Leader in Me is a whole school approach, emphasizes the focus on each individual student's growth regarding the 7 habits in all areas of the building. So really, it's the one thing that's extremely appealing to me is that everybody in the building is a teacher and everybody in the building is a learner, regardless if you're a cook, custodian, algebra teacher, assistant principal, you know, what have you. The 7 habits are for everybody. Basically, the 7 habits are learned by kids through direct instruction, just straight up lessons you might learn in school, integration into our existing curriculum, integration into MTSS time and class meetings, at-home activities with parents and children. That's a big piece. That's a big piece of Leader in Me, is that connection between school and home, and moms and dads being their kids' best teachers. And giving them the content, giving them the curriculum to work with their own students on is very exciting. And then, of course, teachers modeling the 7 habits themselves, because they all get trained. Everybody in the district gets training, and we all become proficient with the 7 habits. And then we kind of move into a train the trainer model. We're going to have a group of people who learn at a different rate and at a different depth than the rest of us, and they're gonna train the rest of us. And then each building is directed to implement at its own pace. I mean, I think that's really critical. That the goal is to integrate Leader in Me and combine things and create relevance rather than adding one more thing to a teacher's plate. It can really function as that connecting piece. That what really is the swizzle stick that stirs that kid drink. So what are the 7 habits of highly effective people? They're listed, obviously they're listed right here on the slide. About, obviously it speaks loudly to being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, putting first things first and prioritizing, thinking win-win, which again, tonight was a great exercise, not to minimize what you all were doing, but thinking win-win in the situation that you're in. I would definitely encourage that. I would always encourage that kind of thinking where people walk away from the process, not unlike what Brett said about contract negotiations. You know, when you walk away from a good session, half of you's going, wow, we really got some of the really good things that we wanted in this negotiation, and then the other half you go, gosh, but they did too. So everybody really wins in a situation like that. Habit 5 talks about seeking first to understand and then be understood. Wow, is that the sign of our times or what? Habit 6 talks about synergizing, where you're taking multiple people from different vantage points and putting them together and using all kinds of different resources to solve problems, to create products, to do things arguably better than you ever have because of the variety of people and resources in the room. And then lastly, keeping the saw sharp, which is about increasing motivation and energy and making sure that you're renewing yourself and that you create your own capacity to do all the things that the world requires of us. And imagine, after really reading and thinking about these things, I sat and I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if Southeast Polk kids could do those 7 things regularly, or even 2 of them, you know, all day, every day? I think it has some real power and some real promise at a time when it's hard to find promise, that's for sure. Some other information, we've been in communications with Franklin Covey and their folks, and they're wonderful to work with. And recently we've been talking about a 3-year contract, what supports from the company looks like, and what the 3 years 1, 2, and 3, what those things involve in terms of each building's commitment to Leader in Me and moving this forward. Franklin Covey is also working with a benefactor who has kind of adopted the state of Iowa. It was a former Iowan turned Wisconsin resident now. Sorry about that. Kind of took a step back, but that's okay. I don't want to be critical of a benefactor, for crying out loud. But the benefactor is going to defray the cost of Leader in Me to every school in Iowa. And I've seen the preliminary numbers and I go, wow, that's incredible. I don't really want to spill the beans or whatever, speak out of school, but the contract itself will be coming to all of you in October for your review, and then hopefully your approval. Last thing I have for you regarding Leader in Me is some practical stuff. We have 2 practitioners with us tonight, Mr. Bala, whom I'm sure you all know, and he's in his new role now at Spring Creek. And then one of our new principals, Mr. Miller. And I've asked them to share some things from their past lives, because both of them were principals in Leader in Me schools. Nate, when he was in West Des Moines, and Morgan, when he was at North Polk. So I've asked them to share some things from their past lives, and then talk about maybe where things are in their current schools with regard to Leader in Me, because I know they've begun some of the preliminary work, and it sure looks exciting and interesting to me, that's for sure. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to these 2, and I'm going to do what I do best, and that's sit down and be quiet.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. All it is back there. I do have a little more color in my presentation there. A little more kid friendly. So sorry, Mr. Lawrence, we want up you there. Here's a copy of our presentation. I don't think we got it to you in advance. So as Mr. Horton said, Nathan Bala, proud to serve as the principal at Spring Creek 6th Grade Center. And I'll
Morgan Miller, student principal at Upton Elementary. Very proud to be here. Very excited that this is an opportunity.
Yeah, so we're both equally excited. Like Joe said, we do have backgrounds, a little bit different backgrounds. In my school in West Des Moines, we were a Leader in Me school, and we're multiple years in the progress. So I saw firsthand the power of this program. More importantly, I saw that it empowered our students to do great things. And we all know that as humans or adults or kids, when given an opportunity to shine, whether it be your talents that you already have or a new talent, and you're able to do that around others and people can see you shine, it really boosts the confidence of our students. And so the sole mission at our school was to give our kids opportunities to shine and display their talents, but also learn new talents and leadership skills to help them become better citizens. And there is many academic connections there. And I could tell you for hours the benefits we saw in the classroom from this program. So we'll tell you a little bit about, like Joe said, it does directly tie into our mission vision for Southeast Polk, learn, lead, live. The Leader in Me program couldn't align any better. Like I said, we allow students to find their voice in the classroom and through those school leadership roles by learning and applying life-ready leadership skills. So we're not only going to teach our students these leadership skills and model these skills for our students, but we are going to give them the opportunity in our school and in our community to apply these leadership skills. And I'll give you some examples here in a little bit. So Joe kind of shared a little bit about some of the core areas, but the 5 core paradigms of Leader in Me, LIM, another acronym that we need to learn, are that everybody can be a leader. So the philosophy of this program and the curriculum and activities that we would use with our students is going to teach them that everybody can be a leader, no matter what your background is, no matter where you come from, no matter what you do, every single one of us can be a leader. And we will teach our kids and instill in them these opportunities and show them how to be a leader. Everyone has genius. Each and every one of us in this room has different strengths, which makes our community so great. We all come together for the common purpose is to make sure that our students have the best opportunities, or the citizens of our community have the best opportunities. So we all have a genius we need to bring together, work together. We teach our kids that change starts with me, or in this example, with them. They have to understand that the change, whether it be something in our school, in our community, in the world, the change has to start with us as individuals, and that we need to learn what it means to be a good leader and how to work with others and lead others or collaborate with others. So we'll instill those skills into our kids. Our teachers, we're gonna empower our educators, our teachers are gonna empower students to lead their own learning. So a lot of what we do here at Southeast Polk with our instructional delivery model, we want our students to be independent learners, and we've trained them and they do very well at it. And sometimes as educators, and me included, we don't always want to turn over so much responsibility to the kids. And I learned through this program that when we do give kids the opportunity, that sometimes maybe we're reluctant to give them that much kind of power in a school, like for example, making the daily announcements, letting the kid have the microphone and talk to the entire school. Or we have a team of students who plan and lead our assembly. So us adults, we step back and give that responsibility to the kids. Whereas in years past, maybe we're a little hesitant to do that, not knowing what happened. But when you give them that opportunity, that moment, that platform, great things happen, and their confidence really boosts. And we seek to develop the whole person, the whole child all around. Obviously, we're teaching them the academics that they need to learn, but it's also our responsibility to teach them the skills to be successful in life and those employability skills that we hope they gain. So when they leave us, they're able to go on to college or the trade industry and whatever they decide to pursue. We want to make sure that they're ready for that. So some benefits of Leader in Me for Southeast Polk as a whole, and these are all things we've heard before. Social emotional learning, as Joe talked about, we're serving students right now that over the last 18 plus months have had much different experiences. And so we have to be cognizant and understanding that the students that are walking into our schools each day have different things going on. But Leader in Me will help kind of students learn to manage their emotions, teach those skills to be able to build relationships with others, to collaborate with anybody in that classroom. The second one, or the middle one there, is very important to me, equity for all students. I want to make sure that we provide every single student the same opportunity to succeed in our school. And so they'll have lots of opportunities to serve in leadership roles in our school in an equitable environment. They'll have the same access to the resources. They will establish positive relationships, not only with their classroom teachers, but associates and custodians and cooks who are also going to help sponsor some of our leadership groups in our school. So they're going to have those connections with many people. Bullying prevention, of course, is at the forefront of a lot of what we do in our school. So it helps address the lasting effects of persistent, unwanted, aggressive, or hurtful behavior between our students, because what we've done with our student leadership groups at Spring Creek, students can sign up and apply, they apply for these leadership jobs, not knowing who else in our school is going to apply for it. So they're eventually going to be in a room with an adult, learning about the responsibilities of their leadership job with kids who have very similar like interests of them that might not be one of their best friends or their friends. So they're going to have the opportunity to make connections with a lot of kids and develop that common ground. Restorative practices, again, strengthen the relationships between our students and our staff. Teacher efficacy, I know you've heard Dr. Latham say over and over that the impact that us educators can have on our children to help them build their confidence is only going to make them more responsible and better learners. And it also aligns with our PBS program, which is found in all of our K-8 schools here at Southeast Polk. So what does implementation look like at Spring Creek? Assuming our contract is signed and approved in October, we established what we call the Lighthouse Team. It's a team of teachers who have an interest in Leader in Me. It's called Lighthouse because they're going to be our beacon of light for our school, helping spread this positive program for our entire school. So they'll start meeting in October, hopefully November-ish, and our entire staff training would take place hopefully starting November during late start Wednesdays. We're going to chunk up the training throughout the year. So just do little bits and pieces as we roll it out to our kids. We have a soft rollout happening on September 29th at Spring Creek. Our teachers are making a short video. We're having a virtual job fair, and our teachers have using a program called Flipgrid. They're making a short kind of video or wanted ad because they're going to be looking for students to apply for their particular jobs. So our kids will attend a virtual job fair, learn about all the jobs, and then they'll be filling out an online application to apply for the jobs that interest them the most. And then the leadership skills, the curriculum, the program, really the meat of Leader in Me will be taught during our Ramsway period, which happens every Wednesday. So a couple of Wednesdays a month, we'll focus on Leader in Me and teach these leadership skills to our students and give them the opportunity to apply the skills. Morgan, have I missed anything so far? Okay, thanks. So what else will it look like in a nutshell? You heard me talk about student leadership jobs. Our kids are super excited about these. When we had kind of a kickoff assembly to preview with the kids what's going to happen in Spring Creek this year, I talked about these jobs and shared some of them. One of the jobs, if you come to Spring Creek and you come to my office and the walls are bare, I promise that's on purpose. One of the jobs is going to be an interior design team. So I'm letting our students, using my money, design my office for me. And then there's going to be other parts of the school that the interior design team will take part in. We have a tech squad. I have a long list of very creative jobs that we tried to make that are student interest based, things that they might be interested in, exposing them to those possible careers down the road and also teaching them employability skills. Student leadership journals that the kids will complete. Within those journals, they set what's called WIGs, wildly important goals. So we're teaching them goal setting right now as we speak at Spring Creek. And then here pretty soon, they're going to start setting their academic goals. And they have to have a plan on how they're going to meet that goal. So you heard Joe talk about be proactive, begin with the end in mind, think win-win. Those are all part of what they're going to learn through these journals and set their goals. And they're going to be progress monitoring how they're doing towards their goal. And I can tell you from experience, the kids are incredibly hard on themselves when they have the opportunity to share this with their parents. Probably tougher than the teachers would be because they're holding themselves accountable. They set this goal, and if they had hiccups along the way, which we teach them is natural, we all experience that. They're learning to overcome those things. So they're also learning life lessons like that. Monthly leadership lessons, leadership assemblies. We'll hope to establish community partnerships, and by inviting them into our school, many of you are leaders, and talk about kind of your careers or where you've gotten to and how you lead in whatever role you are in. So we'd like to feature our community partners, lots of real world applications in our school, and again, teaching them employability skills. Jason, thank you. And so Joe talked about K6, our principal team has been meeting to kind of talk about it. So Joe already mentioned a lot of this too. Once the contract's signed, we'll have immediate access to the Leader in Me online resources. That's really the lifeline for our teachers. Our teachers won't have another thing that we're adding to their plate. All the lessons are pre-designed, motivational videos, activities, things are there for them. It's staggered for the different grade levels. So they're not hearing and learning the same thing year after year. So they'll have access to that. Joe mentioned Leader in Me staff will train our coaches, our Leader in Me coaches here, who will then in turn train the rest of the staff in our buildings. And each building will have Leader in Me coaches in them to be able to provide staff development, whatever we need it, as opposed to relying on the Franklin Covey staff and working around their schedule, where our people will do the training for us. And so, yeah, the rest of it Joe's kind of touched upon. What questions do you have for Morgan or I?
I think this sounds really cool. I mean, the seven habits has been kind of a staple. I think I probably read it 20 years ago. And I don't always exemplify all of them, but I think a lot of them I try to aspire to. So I think that's good that both our educators and our kids will be kind of learning those and practicing them as well. So I think that's great. And the fact that both of you have been through this implementation before, you've worked this system, you understand how it works. I mean, I think that's a huge asset for our district to have you here leading that charge. When you had the dates here, so were you talking about starting your training this year and then implementing it next year? Because I saw
for Spring Creek, yes. So I'm drawing off my experience with this program. I'm a little bit different than the elementaries because obviously I'm a one-year building. And there's a strong need for this program at Spring Creek to help us, with the culture and climate of our school for our students and staff. So some of these things we're starting, when I say soft or loosely implement, we're starting to implement some of these things because we can do that. Whether we are a leader in the school or not, those are things we can do. I've just seen the power that's had, even when I was at Willowbrook. A couple years ago, I presented my school improvement plan for Willowbrook, and Mr. Handy, when I talked about student leadership jobs, I think you asked the question, why wouldn't we do this in all of our schools? Why aren't the other principals doing it? Well, here we are a couple years later, and moving forward with all our schools kind of coming on board. But I would encourage you, once we get going, to come visit Spring Creek when you see our students meeting to plan their jobs or carry out their jobs, and just hear their conversations and what they're talking about. It's truly inspirational. But we're taking 11 and 12-year-old kids and hearing them talk like they're adults and taking these jobs so serious. And we're gonna have a broadcast team, a podcasting team, social media journalists. They're gonna tell the story of our school, not me. I shouldn't tell the story of Spring Creek. That should come from our kids. They're the ones experiencing it. So we're gonna expose them to many different career options and let them lead in those roles to make our school the best school that it can possibly be. So knowing that, I'm not willing to wait. I'm just gonna go forward with it.
So bold decision to let them decorate your office.
Well,
We're gonna have to come just to see that.
Yeah, I had 5 young ladies come up to me right away with ideas, and one of them asked me, so how much money are we talking about?
Yeah.
They want to know the budget right away, so that's good. So
You're gonna end up
we'll
with
see what they come up with. I'm excited. Who knows? Maybe they'll come decorate.
How do you feel about squishmallows?
Well, I'll find out, I guess.
pink carpet.
Yeah. those will
Daisies.
come up with.
I think the job fair is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So thank you to Mr. Horton, Mr. Bella, Mr. Morgan. Boy, that's very unique and very modern. I'm just thrilled our kids are getting this experience. Way to go.
Yeah. And years into this, when you visit our schools, and you ask the kids, what does it mean to be proactive? They'll be able to look you square in the eye like an adult and tell you what that means, or what it means to begin with the end in mind and have a plan and execute that plan.
Right.
And carry it out. So, and then eventually we started to do student-led conferences too, and the parents, the feedback on that was I didn't even feel like I was sitting across from my own child. It's like
Wow.
a much different
That's
person.
very cool.
Because we taught them ahead of time how to do the conferences and be professional and really, articulate on certain things that they're doing well. And if they have some things they want to improve upon, also talk about that too. And so the kids were very excited to do that. The parents were just amazed at just seeing the confidence in the kids. So.
Can you talk a little bit about, because it was featured in the book, teaching a 5-year-old this stuff that happens, and moving that kindergarten child forward, what's this look like for kindergarten?
Well, the nice thing is common language. So this is something that they're going to learn through all 8 elementary buildings and carry that through the 6th grade building. But I think it's at their level, but we're empowering them to just own their school. There's so many of these things that we do already, but to me, it's connecting the dots, filling in the space, finding that hook for kids to come to school. And we have kids that excel at high levels, but they might not be excited about school. We're going to give them that hook to be excited about school, to come and hopefully, learn even better. So at all levels, we never really were at the same implementation level as Mr. Bell. That's kind of why I'm dead weight here on the side. But his success with it, it's I don't want to step in the way of that, but in my prior district, to go through the book study 2 different times and to have teachers be so excited about it. But just, we talk about the plates of teachers. This takes up some of that plate, and it's got to be the right time. And I think collectively as building leaders early on here, we know that this is going to connect those dots and it's the right time to go. So we're just excited for the possibilities in the future. And I think it's just something that we can talk and we can put slides and we can do all this stuff about this, but it's that feeling that you get when you enter the building. Part of my draw to come to Southeast Polk Schools is that feeling I got when I was in the buildings, even if it was COVID precautions those times. I can't wait to feel the feeling when we have some of this employed in all of our buildings, because it's only gonna be all the better. It's gonna take our really good schools to be really great schools. This is the icing on the cake. I'm excited to be a part of it.
This is more of a comment. I probably said this to you last time you presented. This kind of seems like it has a hint of Exchange City in it with the job. I remember when
Yeah, a
I
little
was,
bit.
when, which is, I think, just unbelievable because those kids learn a lot from that. This expands it, obviously, I don't even know, 200%, but when you talk about the Exchange City, and I don't know if you guys, Gary, Rick would probably know, but when those kids go out there and they do take a job on,
Yeah.
And it does, it is amazing to watch them take on that leadership role and
Yeah.
and to combine all this other stuff in there. Really, does Exchange City even exist anymore?
I think they call it Biz Town now.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we participate as sixth grade?
Dr. Luck and I have talked about that before.
Right, because I think that's something that maybe we should build our own. I've said this since I was the school resource officer. I'm like, why don't we have this at Southeast Polk? I mean, I get it. When you go in there and you look at the things that's in there, it's like a little city. If you'd never had an opportunity to go, I would suggest you go check it out since it's still around. It is pretty impressive, and I think we did a $92 million bond. We can afford to do a little Exchange City of our own. So Kevin's over there stopping his head, but
Yeah.
hey,
No.
that's your checkbook there, Mr.
Yeah.
Tom. We're gonna.
This is
It's
gonna
for the
give,
kids.
this is gonna give our kids a really great opportunity to gain confidence in themselves.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've seen some of the toughest, most challenging kids
Yeah.
behavior wise.
Right.
Once they had a purpose, a role in our school, something that they were responsible for, much different kid.
Yes.
And one kid who was deathly afraid of public speaking. He went out on a limb and signed up, applied for the assembly group. And next thing I know, he's standing in front of, I had 700 kids in my school, standing in front of 700 kids leading that assembly and talking. So he overcame his fear just by little bits at a time, but he built up that courage to be able to deal with it. So again, you give the kids that opportunity, that platform, that they'll respond every single time. It's just our job as adults and educators to give them that platform to
Right.
do it. And that's what this program will allow us to do in our schools. So
Wonderful.
very excited for it.
Unless you're Peter Brady and then it goes to your head when you're the hall monitor.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
I like the goal.
We don't
set-
have that role. but-
I like the goal setting part. I sit there and think, Franklin Covey came after my time, but goal setting is so huge. I'm just sitting there thinking, I don't know if we've ever really talked about that. I mean, we kind of do on the edges, but to hit it front on like that, I think it's a powerful tool. And so
Yeah. last
giving those
Wednesday,
kids
that's
a
been our
chance,
lessons at Spring Creek.
you don't know where you're going type thing. And so that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. All right, last but not least, 3F Stadium Project Update.
Good evening, board. Bill Good with an update on the stadium. Kevin asked that I keep this under 90 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to do that. There are a couple issues that we're going to talk about schedule to begin with. I'm going to try and get this one of the site pictures up here because seeing is believing. That's not the one. And that's not the one. That's right. Yes, this is a pretty good indication of one of our big problems as far as schedule right now. I don't know if you can make that a little larger. But yes, thank you. There's two issues that are impacting schedule in a pretty significant way. And one is the rains, though not the recent rains, but 2 to 3 weeks ago, this was September 1 in this picture. We were holding an awful lot of water and you don't do a lot of dirt work in those kinds of conditions. Second of all, and then I think you can go to probably that first one that you. poor soils were discovered at the northeast corner, and actually, it's hard to tell here, but this is the northeast corner of the North Concourse. And this was just earlier this week. And what you see there is groundwater, but we had some very poor soil conditions, and it was determined that we had to remove those poor soils. And we'll be coming back with and over excavate the area and bring back rock for that foundation for that North Concourse. We just really, it's just very important to have stability underneath those footings to support those structures long term. So we're doing it right, Megan, and it's taken a little time to do it right, but we have a lot of engineers and soil experts that are advising us on this particular aspect. And this is one of those unexpected conditions and will result in a change order.
More money.
How deep down is that?
Well, I would estimate that probably 60 feet depth there. Maybe one of the other pictures gives you a little more of a
But yeah, while we're looking for the picture, what's going to keep us from continuing to have water stand there? How are we working on drainage too? Is that part of the
yeah,
solution?
the subcontractor was proactive in trenching some of that water out of there to help dry it out, to get it out of there quicker. Oh, I think I'll skip the pictures here. So anyway, weather conditions have resulted in us being backed up a few weeks on the schedule. When you're less than 10% complete on the project, you still have time to make up. And that's what we're hoping for. We're trying to, we're looking at sequencing of some of the work to maybe push people around to try to pick up some days and weeks. And there's certainly actively working in that particular regard. A few other things going on. I think the last time I was here, I talked a little bit about how important it was to get in that seating window for the cross-country course and portions of the rest of the site there. And as of midweek, this week, 80 to 90% of the topsoil that was supposed to be spread over the cross-country course has been spread, and seeding did start this week. So that's a good thing. And we also, the architect was looking for making sure that we have proper grades on that course also. Because I know that may well be a concern. We want to make sure that the grades are right before we grade and seed. Some of the other work, fire lane on the southeast portion of the site. Much of that's been paved and formed. So there is concrete installation underway this week on that fire lane. Utility work has been moving ahead very well. The storm and sanitary sewer on the south end of the site have been installed been going in the last 10 days. So weather has been good for those kinds of things for the last 10 days. The sidewalk along Martha Miller Drive, that's kind of been dragging a little bit, but it's now ready for rock base and concrete. That should be, starting on that as soon as early next week. There are no additional change orders at this time, but we do expect more, which would be normal for a normal course for a project such as this. And then lastly, one thing we talk about at every construction meeting is supply chain issues, and there are none as of yesterday. Yes, we're hoping that that holds. So with that, unless that's all I had for you, unless you've got any particular questions.
do you think at this stage you've done enough? I mean, as far as, I know, ran into some bad soil, do you think we kind of know where we're at with that, or is there more bad soil we might find doing something else?
Yeah, based upon, some of the utility work that's been going on, we really think that northeast corner was,
Suspect.
we're not seeing a repeat on that.
Yeah.
We're certainly not hoping, or we're certainly hoping that that's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right.
So we're not expecting it at this
Okay.
point.
Is that where that, I'm assuming, trying to visualize that northeast. I'm assuming that's that side that had the little ravine. When you come off it's getting late.
Sidewalk.
Cross-country track looking west. When you went down, there was just like I don't know if it had a drain coming through there from the other side or.
Yeah, there is I wouldn't call it a swale, but there is a drainage area that's existing there. It's not feeding this problem with the northeast. That's groundwater that.
No, I mean, just the compaction issue. I would suspect that's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and probably when they came in and put that road in, they probably wasn't there a culvert there too or something that?
Yeah, that I'm not remembering, but yeah, these conditions existed forever.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But that drain, that water will have a nice path that'll take it down to the creek or something, or run it
Yeah.
away there so it doesn't sit once we're done.
Yeah, once that, all that storm, that's what that storm sewer is going to help us do, is drain the
That's
site.
okay.
So we're headed in that direction, so.
Well, appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bill.
Bill.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the cause?
One more thing,
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Mayor, if that's
sorry.
handy. One thing I would like to discuss with the board along with this project, and the project started to come. We don't have a board policy on change orders, right? For the board to approve certain change orders at certain dollar amounts. So I kind of want to talk through that. We need to be able to do things in the field.
Right.
Have the superintendent approve at certain dollar
Keep things
thresholds.
moving.
And then, I mean, code wise, the board has to approve all change orders no matter what. So you'll see those come through in our bills, et cetera, and we'll talk about those. But as far as formal board approval on particular change orders or group change orders, I kind of want to talk through that. And once we make a decision on that, I'll drop a board policy or whatever regards to that change order. Just for your reference, Johnson has a $25,000 threshold where it does go to the board. West Des Moines has a $50,000 threshold, goes to the board. Ankeny 25,000, Urbandale 20,000. Based on those things and the size of our projects, I'd recommend a $25,000 threshold. Anything under that, the superintendent can approve. Anything over that, we bring to you as a formal action item by the school board.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, just to clarify, because we have a 5% contingency on the whole project, right?
Construction contingency, correct?
Yeah, so I can't remember how much that was off the 21. I went to Bonder, I remember I have bad math, but so roughly give me what the 5% was of was it 22 million?
22 million.
So
and
we're
it's 2.2, 1.1 million.
okay, so obviously that's already built in.
Yeah.
I guess I don't,
Those,
I guess
those
I,
things- and that construction contingency pot of money will reduce as the construction goes along.
so you're just saying, because I know we had obviously contingencies on or change orders on Mitchellville and some of the other projects, Altoona Elementary, and I remember those coming through before the work was done though.
Yeah, and this would be for the small ones, the ones under 25,000, those would be done in the field prior to the board seeing it. We discuss it at meetings, but this is more setting that threshold for
Just so
action
they
to
can get the
happen at
work
board
done.
Before that work is done.
Just so we
correct?
don't have to delay for the next meeting. Is that
Correct.
okay? All right. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
You think
Right.
25 is high enough?
I think 25,000 is in line with our metro area comrades, and these Waukee, for example, they have 12 different projects going on. They send every change order to the board for approval. I don't know how they do it that way because it would slow down the work in the field. I want to keep projects moving. Obviously, we have.
And then all you're doing as
schedules,
a
et
board
cetera.
is going through change
Correct.
orders, so
Yeah.
you
Right.
want to keep our eye on the
No,
main thing.
I think that's reasonable, and
Okay.
obviously we gotta stay at that contingency. We don't want to go over that. And I think that's the key is
Mhm.
keeping that. Because if we go over that, then we're into other projects. So.
I mean, I think it'd be good when it comes to us if we're able to see how
The-
much of
the-
that we're.
Right. I think we used to, in the past, we keep a running total sometimes,
Yeah.
well, we're skinnying up.
Correct.
Right, but if we have 1.2 million in contingency at 25,000, that's 48 change orders. That's a lot of change orders.
So we
Well,
better
it
stick
only
at like
takes hitting
45.
Yeah, one biggie.
significant Indian burial ground that was,
Right.
Yeah.
the whole thing around, so.
But in terms of what you guys would do in the field, those would
Yeah.
all be.
Not me, I just count the numbers, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, get out there and start digging. All right, everybody good with that?
Thank you.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause?
A motion to adjourn.
Before that, I want to thank the officers in the back for being here
Yes.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for coming
gentlemen.
out and spending your night. Thanks for the positive conversations we had with the community tonight. Obviously, wasn't really sure what we were going to get into, so thanks for bringing the positive and keeping things nice and even keel. So again, thanks Pleasant Hill PD, and did I have a motion already?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned. Do I have a second?